focus, things that were moving forward. And we had some positives and we had some areas of focus come out of that report, which we completed in 2020, and we got the report back in 2021. So positives, we really support our students. We go above and beyond in the trainings that we do, the PD that we provide for our teachers, the resources that we give our kids. We go above and beyond. We support them throughout the program. I'm proud to say that we've had 100% for the past few years of our kids make it across the finish line as IB diploma candidates because we really support them as they go through the program. Areas of focus, though, we were given some feedback that we need to have more time for our teachers to communicate across subject areas and articulate within grade levels as well. Just to give you a little more information on IB, we offer 23 of the 61 available IB courses. That's including SL and HL, standard level and higher level. And just another note that students are only eligible to take IB classes when they're a junior or a senior in their final 2 years of schooling around the world. In AP, we offer 16 of the 21 or 28 available courses, not counting seminar and research. Students can only take, students in this high school can take an AP exam, however, without course enrollment. That's one of our policies, which I'll get into in a little bit. But IB, you cannot take an exam without course enrollment, and AP, we recommend that you take the course so that you do better on the exam and that you're prepared. But we do allow students to take the AP exams without course enrollment. For AP, kids can be in any grade level. However, in our high school, we do see that kids are primarily in grades 10, 11, 12 when they take their AP classes. But like AP Psych is available to the kids in 9th grade. And then all of the IB courses, all the AP courses rather, are 1 year and 1 level. There's no differentiation of standard, higher, and they're all 1 year. Thinking about our teaching and learning. So the IB aligns very well with the IB learner profile and the SVOs, our shared valued outcomes. There's a direct correlation between the two if you look at the crosswalk. IB courses prepare students for what we call an internal assessment, which is different in every course. And so an internal assessment is an assessment. It's a performance-based assessment that is part of every course and is actually part of the grade that the students get in the end when they're all finished, when they get the transcript of their scores. The IA is 20 to 30% of their grade. So in history, they do a historical investigation. In English and world language, it's a spoken assessment. In science and math, it's a design of an experiment. In the arts, it's an exhibition or a true performance in music or theater. We also have in the IB the approaches to teaching and learning, and those approaches to learning are for the students. They learn in the classroom thinking skills, communication, social, self-management, and research skills through the coursework. And for the teacher end, the approaches to teaching, we want teaching that is based on inquiry, conceptual understanding, global context, collaboration, differentiated for our students, and also getting to the assessment at the end of it. This next slide here is showing you how that translates into the College Board world, into the world of AP. There is no approach to teaching and learning in the AP classes. What we do have is the course and exam description, and this is a public available document to every teacher, or everyone on the internet, really. And so it goes through and tells you all the units that are to be covered in that AP course. What it does offer are big ideas, and those are conceptual understandings, and that's where that would correlate with the work of the IB. In terms of curriculum, they're both prescribed by the outer organizations, the curriculum for AP being prescribed by the College Board, the curriculum for the IB being prescribed by the IBO. The difference is in an AP class, you generally have 8 to 10 units that must be covered. In IB, you have core topics that must be covered, and then every school selects which options they'll cover beyond those core topics. So for example, in history, we have the move to global war is our choice of what we studied in that subject area. All of our curriculum, whether it's AP or IB, the curriculum writing and what is delivered to our students is supervised by myself and the directors in alignment with the template that we get from our Dr. Z, which is including the movement across the progressions on the SVOs and how students become collaborators in these classes. We look at the units, we look at the assessments. That's all built into every curriculum because we take the subject guide or the CED from the AP and translate that into our classroom and how we deliver it to our students. Professional development for both of these organizations is plentiful. We, I will say, go above and beyond in the sense that we typically send all of our teachers for training for AP and IB, both. That's more than what is required. AP, you're not required to send somebody at all, but we do. We like to send our teachers so that they're prepared. They know when there's a change in the curriculum. Even when there is a change, we send our teachers again so that they know what the most recent curriculum is to deliver to our students. For IB, we're only required to send one teacher per subject area. However, we have historically sent all of our teachers that teach IB. Those are on a cyclical process where those courses are revised every 7 years. So we know that every 7 years we need to send at least one teacher for that subject to be retrained in the new curriculum. So AP assessment and IB assessment is where they really differ a lot. AP asks a student, what do you know? And IB asks a student, what can you do with what you know? So both of them, you need to know your content. And in IB, you really need to be able to apply your learning. If you look at, I think there's some backup of 2 history exams, one for AP and one of IB. You'll see that AP will have a multiple choice section and a free response section. IB will have short answer and then student choice where they pick from a list of essay topics which one they want to write about. Those are both the students sit down in May over at St. Rocco's and take their AP or their IB exam. But then in addition to that, remember I talked about that internal assessment for the IB. The internal assessment is unique to the IB in the sense that this is part of coursework. It's part of the teaching hours. It's part of the hours that a student has in the classroom. It is done under the supervision and guidance of a teacher, and then it is graded by the teacher and given to the IB. I do want to mention here that we provide support for all of our students throughout the high school. Any student that wants to take these classes, I told them recently, you are the gatekeepers of your education. No one's stopping you from taking these classes, no matter who you are. If you have testing accommodations, if you're an E&L student, we have had E&L students complete the IB diploma program. We had a student a number of years ago write their extended essay in Mandarin, which is amazing. Nonetheless, we provide the support for our students in all of their assessments, whether that's extended time, large font, a separate location, all of that is available to all students in AP and IB. And I just want to mention that we also, well, obviously, as a high school offering the IB diploma program, we offer the full diploma. We do have a small number of students that participate in the full diploma, but we have a large number of students that participate in IB courses. So just to give you some information of exactly what the IB diploma is, it means that a student in junior and senior year completes 6 courses, 3 at the standard level, 3 at the higher level. They also complete the theory of knowledge class, extended essay and the topic of their choice, and then creativity, activity, service in the subject or sport, whatever they choose outside of the classroom. I'll get to this in a little bit more, but we do not have any application process for a student to be an IB diploma candidate. So part of the audit really was to look at the numbers, like how many students are participating, what percentage of students that were eligible did participate. So the 2 rows that are highlighted in yellow here are where I'd like to focus. So you have like looking at the enrollment of the students that were eligible. So, right, remember AP, we're really talking only about students in grades 10, 11, 12. I could have included 9, but that would make it look worse. And I want this to be the most unbiased, clear presentation without trying to pad any numbers here. So AP, I'm really only looking at kids that are in grades 10, 11, 12. How many of them took an AP exam in 2021 and 2022 that were eligible? So you could see over the past 2 years, we're hovering right around 50%. Half of the kids that were eligible took an AP exam. Now, if we look at IB, the only students that are eligible are in grades 11 and 12. I did not include 12 year 1 courses in this number. So we have 12 courses that are IB English 1, IB History 1, IB Spanish, Mandarin, Latin, French, Italian 1. I did not include any of that in this number. So it does look low, but I just want to make sure it's clear that I did not include a large number of students that are sitting in an IB class because the exam is at the end of their 2nd year in the course. So these numbers only reflect students that are actually taking an exam in 2021 and 2022. So you can see of the students that were eligible at that time, we're hovering around 49 to 43% for the past 2 years. I'll be happy to come back to this. This lab was one of my favorites to create, doing a little archaeology of what we do versus what everybody else does. So first and foremost, we have no application process, no screening for our AP and IB classes. If you want to go into the classes, it is up to you as a student here. In other high schools, you will see that students have to interview, fill out an application, demonstrate their commitment to their learning through that gatekeeping process. We do not do that. Here in our high school, we also allow any student to take any AP exam at any time. So, for example, I could tell you I have a couple students taking AP Chinese this year. Other schools would not allow a student to do that because they're not sitting in a course. So that's very unique to us in the sense that we provide for that opportunity. We pay for all of the required exams that are for AP and IB classes, whereas most high schools, the students pay for that. Their families pay for their AP and IB exams. If a student fails to show for their AP or IB exam, we do not take that designation off of their transcript, where that is a common practice in other schools. We don't require students to fill their schedules. They can have 4 periods off if that's what they want to do. That varies across high schools. Community service is not required here for graduation. However, it is important to point out that majority of our students do complete community service before graduating, where in other high schools it is required. And the last one is Theory of Knowledge, which is an IB course. In other high schools, it's only available to IB diploma candidates. Here, we highly encourage and hope that all of our students take that class, regardless of whether or not they're a diploma candidate or not. Okay, so moving on to effectiveness. Analyzing the effectiveness is each program by itself, how they work together. So the hard part here was really trying to figure out, how do you decide what is effective and what's not? How do you define it? So you can see here some of the things that we considered. But we did talk about how we've been recently recognized with some national achievement here, right? Niche, the Blue Ribbon Award, and the U.S. World and News Report. We just received like higher rankings on those and the Blue Ribbon Award. And we also know that we are providing effective programs and opportunities for our students based on the admissions process, where they're getting into college, the fact that they're getting scholarships, or they're getting advanced standing or recognition for the work that they're doing here. So we know that that's another way to measure the effectiveness of these programs. This was probably a bar graph that made your head spin in the backup. So let me just clarify this for you for a little bit. We did a survey of about 600 individuals that included the entire senior class, the entire faculty at the high school, not just AP and IB teachers, all of the administrators, and a number of all the IB diploma alumni. So that's where the next few slides of data have come from. So what we did was put together a couple of the variables. So if you just look at one color alone, that will really help to process what this is showing you. So if you look at, for example, just the red, the question was, how many credits or what kind of advanced standing did you get for your work in high school? The students that are in red got 1 full year of promotion or recognition for their work. So if you look at just that color, you can see how are they satisfied in the rigor of one program versus the other. I hope that helps. And same thing if I go on to the content. If you look at one color versus the other, it's representing the same group of students and how many credits and what kind of advanced standing they got in college and their satisfaction. So there were a number of other qualifiers and categories in that survey that are in the backup. We had 46 senior responses. And if you look at this, the green could be really deceiving. The green is actually only 2 students. The majority of our students are the yellow. And why is that? That's because we have a hybrid between AP and IB for juniors and seniors. We have a lot of overlapping. Like if you're in biology, year 1 is IB/AP and year 2 is just IB. So the majority of our seniors at some point in their high school career have taken AP something and are currently in IB something. So the yellow is the most revealing color in this graph to tell you, does their program align with their goals? Are they satisfied with the rigor of their classes? So we can certainly dig into that one as well. We had 45 administrator, teacher, and counselor responses, and you can see the comparison between the two here. We asked the teachers, to what extent do you feel that AP courses prepare students for college and career readiness? Same question regarding the IB courses, and you can see how they responded here. We asked them, to what extent do you believe that the AP courses align with our SVOs, namely communicators, collaborators, and thinkers? Same question for the IB. We also took into consideration college credits. We want our students to get tangible rewards and tangible attainment for the things that they're doing in this high school. So college credits are a big payoff because they give kids an opportunity to explore further coursework. But it is important to point out that this varies a lot, unfortunately, between one college to the next, one state to the next, one major to the next, one individual to the next. But we do have two resources here. One is that the College Board provides a very comprehensive website where you could search based on the course that you took, the university that you're going to, and see exactly how many credits you'll get for the score that you have. That is an area where the IB is still doing work to make more recognition wider across the country. However, I do want to point out that you can get sophomore standing at a number of universities for attaining the IB diploma. So we know that AP students are getting some payoff, right? They're graduating college on time. There's good retention from year one to the next, meaning that they stay at the college from freshman year to sophomore year. That's a huge positive indicator. That is how we know kids are college and career ready. Do they stay at the same college from one year to the next? We also know that AP students are more likely to graduate on time than kids that did not participate in AP courses. This is just something that I did think was important to include in this presentation tonight because Trevor Packer is the VP of college of the AP program at the College Board, and this is a tweet that came out in 2019, and it's just something that it kind of sends mixed messages from the organization. Like, kids are taking tons and tons of AP and IB classes. They're burdening themselves. They're stressed out. They're taking more and more and more. And here you have a tweet from the VP himself saying, after 6, like, it's diminishing returns, guys. So we're asking colleges to not give you more credits than for 6 exams. The reality is kids are still getting credits for more than 6 exams. So it's like, we hear you saying this, but in practice, that's not really happening. So I just wanted to include that as like the big picture. Looking at the effectiveness of IB, again, you can see that the IB students are graduating on time more than the national cohort. Again, we have that high retention rate of IB students in college, that they're staying at their colleges. And we also know that the kids that participate in CAS are ready to take on new challenges when they get to college. They're ready to thrive in the discussions that they're going to have in their college classes. So we also administered the survey to 46 colleges, a different survey, of course, than the one that went to the alumni. I'd like to thank Mr. Doherty for your help on that. We sent a survey to 46 representatives that work with our high school and asked them, like, can you guys give us some more information of what it looks like on your end? What do our students look like when they get to you? Or how do they look when they're coming into your admissions office? What does it look like? So 16 of the universities told us who they were. The others wanted to remain anonymous, which we told them we would do that. So we're not going to reveal who said what in here. But some of the questions were these. Which high school courses are given preference in the admissions process? And the overwhelming response is that they want to see students taking the most challenging available to them. I do want to point out that we asked them, are our North Shore students at a disadvantage because we offer both? And 100% the answer was no. They're not at a disadvantage because we offer both. Some of the qualitative responses are here highlighted that you can see how these representatives responded. We asked them what are the top 3 factors in the admissions process, and you can see that that's their grades on their transcripts, the strength of their curriculum, and I believe the third was their college essay. Usually, like, ACTs and SATs will be higher, but this is a little bit of a fun year. Here we asked them on a Likert scale, completing the AP capstone versus completing the IB diploma. To what extent is that giving a student an advantage in the admissions process? And you can see the comparison here. The AP capstone is not a product that we currently offer, but it is the competitor product from the College Board to the IB diploma. Here we asked the universities whether or not AP courses benefit students in the admissions process. And you can see how their answers fell into place here. AP courses versus IB courses. This is really where it really matters. Do AP and IB courses matter on a transcript? Yes, they do. And so does a student's grade in the admissions process. Uh-oh. Okay. This one is about the test scores. So we know that our students will get a grade for their AP exam or their IB exam in July of the same year that they took that course and that they took that exam. So the scores come out in July. And students that are juniors or seniors applying to college rather may have scores from junior year and sophomore year to put on their transcript when they apply. They don't have to, it's up to them. But we ask the universities, do those scores have a say or have a strong role in the admissions process? Does it give a student an advantage? And you can see here how they responded to that prompt. I want to point out that there is a big difference between the admissions and what's on their transcript versus getting the credits. Because eventually, after the student graduates, right, it's June, you've gone to graduation, we've all celebrated, now you know where you're going to college and you might know what you're going to be studying. That's when the credits come into play. That's when we say, all right, Binghamton, let's send you this transcript, and let's send you the transcript from North Shore High School with your final grades, the transcript from the College Board with all your AP scores, and the transcript from the IB with all of your IB scores. And then it's up to the university to say, okay, how many credits are we going to give you for these scores that you have earned? And that's where they might get that advanced standing. They can get their classes selected sooner. And there are so many payoffs to getting those credits. But it's really the coursework and the grade in the course that gets them into where they want to go. In this slide, you could see whether or not the colleges say that they give credits for AP and IB exams. So if you look at both and you add it up, it was a yes or no question, but some of them still took it upon themselves to type in a little more. It does come out to about 97% for both of them that they say yes. However, I do want to point out that at some of the universities that responded, they do only give credit for higher level classes. Okay, looking at other opportunities in the high school. So we're going to talk about dual enrollment and what else is out there in the abyss of education. So dual enrollment, we currently have existing partnerships with Adelphi, Molloy, Syracuse, and Stony Brook in a number of courses. We're still looking, we're doing a lot of work right now to see what more partnerships we can establish with other universities, especially Stony Brook, so that students would be able to get a SUNY credit and transfer it within the SUNY system. So that's work that we're currently doing. So the difference between AP and IB versus dual enrollment, just so that we all know, is that dual enrollment is like providing a transcript from one university and bringing that slip over to the next university so that you say, hey, I got an A in this course in my high school work. Versus the AP and IB is going to be, hey, I got this score. Can you give me anything for this score? There are a couple of other programs out there, being CLEP, which is a College Board product. I honestly have never heard of one school actually using it, but it does exist. And there's also the Cambridge ACE program and the AP Capstone. And finally, we'll look at the actual costs and the opportunity costs. So here you can see a little bit of information about the percentage of our students that are classified, have 504s, and that are E&L. How many of those students are participating in the rigorous coursework? So if you look at just the bottom row here, you'll see for the past 2 years, we've got about 16% of those students in that population participating. Providing both programs and providing all the different opportunities that we have for our students at this high school does push and pull on different levers throughout the system. So that might affect class sizes, where sometimes you have only a few students in one class. It could affect level loading, where sometimes you have tons of students in one section and only a few in another. But it's definitely an art and a science to build a master schedule so that everybody gets what they want. If you look though, and this is in the backup as well, you can see like the number of students in every section. I broke it down into the averages for the past 4 years of what is the average class size for an AP class versus an IB class versus a non-AP or IB class, and you can see those numbers here. So actual cost for AP. When we budget for training for professional development for an AP teacher, we typically budget $1,000. Those are typically local trainings. And I say $1,000, but like it could be less if it's online. It could be less if it's just a one-day thing, but that's what we budget. When we pay for those exams, they are $96 a piece this year. And then other pieces that are the components that are part of the fees for AP include curriculum writing, which is our curriculum rate. There is no annual fee to be an AP school. the instructional data warehouse through BOCES that helps us with some of our data work. We do get money back when a student is on free and reduced lunch. That's $34 back per exam. When we offer a large number of exams, we get $250 to $500 back. In my time here, I can say that we've only gotten $500 back once. Typically, we get $250. We also have textbooks and lab materials that we need to provide for these courses. And then finally, we do rent out St. Rocco's in May every year so that our students have a quiet place to take their exams. It's worked very well for us over the years. And just an average of the past 4 years is $6,300 annually. And then we have the IB courses and what they cost. So IB, when we have a teacher going for training, we budget $2,000. Typically, those are further away. We do have them online, and again, those are a lot cheaper to do online, but I will tell you in our experience, we are definitely a group that prefers in-person, hands-on training because you get to network and meet people from all over that are going to be teaching the same course as you. The exams are $119 a piece. The annual fee is about $12,000. That gives us access to professional development throughout the year, also all the subject guides, the Program Resource Center. We are part of the Guild of IB Schools, which is like the cheapest, best PD we could ever get. It's only $350, and you network with teachers all in the area. Extended essay mentors receive $350 per student that they mentor. In the past few years, I have applied for us to get a New York State waiver for our free and reduced lunch students that take IB courses. We've typically gotten about $2,000 back. In May 2021, we got $2,166. We also were able to apply for an IB reimbursement last year. Due to the pandemic, the national shipping center was closed and everything had to be shipped internationally, so it cost a lot more, but they gave us all the money back because I applied for a grant, really a reimbursement for what we had to spend. Same thing with textbooks and materials in St. Rocco's, and I just explained the shipping cost. And then finally, there used to be a component of registration fees that we paid per student, and that was eliminated in 2019. So we no longer pay that $172 per student to take an IB exam. So just to give you an overview of exactly how much we've spent in the past few years, the past two namely. AP, how much we spent on our required exams. I did take out the amount of what we collected from students that paid for those optional exams and how much we paid for IB for the past 2 years. So you can see where that lies. And so at this time, I just want to mention that we will be back January 6th. So I look forward to our discussion and questions so that we can make sure we provide everything you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As our trustees take their seats, I just want to say that was, I think, what we had asked for and then some at our initial discussion of what we were looking for. So again, I greatly appreciate it. What I'd like to do is ask my fellow trustees to jump in and ask whatever questions we have of Dr. Titone or of other folks who might be able to answer them as well.
I'm ready to
Please,
start.
Trustee McCary.
That was really interesting. I learned so much. So yeah, thank you so much for that.
There's a lot to it.
Yeah, I have a few questions, I guess, just to clarify. I'm curious if you can speak a little bit more about the standard level versus higher level of the IB. I wasn't exactly sure what that meant.
Sure.
The obvious.
So a standard level, yeah, I didn't clarify that one. A standard level class requires 150 hours of seat time, and a higher level class requires 240 hours of seat time. So you would never be able to complete a higher level class in 1 year of schooling.
Okay. So if you take the first year, are you required to take the second year, or just?
We hope that all of our students stay in because we're like, you took year one,
right?
You took half, go take the other half. But we do, even when I budget like our numbers for the exams that we pay for year after year, I do look at the attrition and retention rates because we do have fluctuation.
Okay. And then you had also spoken about perhaps getting sophomore standing if you have an IB diploma. I'm just curious if any of our students have been able to achieve that, if you're aware of that.
I know one particular student that was at UC Santa Barbara. She did. Another student at American University.
Okay. And then
off the top of your head. Geneseo was another one.
Okay. All right. And then I think you said this, but I just want to make sure. So
Andrea, I'm sorry, just point, the mic is, yes.
Sorry.
That's all right.
If you take an AP test and an IB test, right, those scores don't automatically get sent to the college, right? You have to choose to send them.
Correct.
And in many instances, like especially with the IB program, your scores are not coming in. And with the AP test senior year, your scores are not coming in until after you've graduated, right?
Right. So they come in about July 6th, and then it's up to the student whether or not they want to send the scores to the university. I always tell our seniors, I'm like, at this point, you have nothing to lose. You know where you're going. You paid your deposit. All you can do at this point is get credits for it or get advanced standing for it.
Right. So when we think about these two programs affecting the admissions process, it's really the enrollment in the class that's affecting the admissions process, not the score on the exams.
Correct. We do have, though, like a lot of our students take AP World in 10th grade. If they get a 4 or a 5 and the Common App is asking them, hey, have you ever taken any AP exams? A 4 or 5 is a great score. And so they want to highlight that and show it. But it's their choice to do that.
Right. And then do we have any data on why students are taking the IB courses but not completing the diploma?
The short answer is they're afraid of the work. They're like, I don't want to do an extended essay. Like, why do I want to write a 4,000 word research paper? I was just in presentations today to our 10th graders, and one of our seniors, Katie's gone. It wasn't Katie, but it was one of her friends, was talking about the theory of knowledge course. And he was like, everybody says, like, I don't want to do the extra. He's like, that's not a reason not to do the diploma. That's a reason to do the diploma. So there's a little bit of a misconception of students feeling like, I don't want to do all this extra, but that's not really the hard part. The hard part is doing the 6 courses over the 2 years of 6 college level courses. So they are afraid of the course. They're afraid of the workload, but they're not exactly aligned where the coursework or where the workload really is. Okay. I'm sorry if I'm not explaining that clearly. Yeah.
I think, another reason could be that they want to take different courses as they get to senior year. The diploma can kind of limit because you may have to take the second part of IB biology in senior year. They may want to take AP physics because they're going into a STEM field in college. So they may want to diversify their, what they're taking. Right. And the diploma can be limiting in some ways in terms of what you have to complete and by when.
It sounds like that's an area that maybe we need to get some more data on, right? Because we're just sort of guessing what the reasons might be. It might be interesting to get some.
I think it's also individualized by student. Like a reason for one student could be different.
Right. So if we had that data, then maybe we can figure out where we can provide additional support to them or additional education to them on, to maybe counteract some of their myths about why they don't want to take it or why they do want to take it.
And I agree with that. I think we need to, if we stay with the program, we need to do a better job at making sure that we encourage students when they're doubtful. I came from a school that probably had, previous to North Shore, one of the largest AP programs in the country that did not offer capstone because very few kids want to do that given the opportunity cost. Capstone is the equivalent of the full IB diploma. It's grueling, just like the full IB diploma is, and it creates tremendous ask on the students to give other things up, including things like sports and the arts. So I think that students end up talking with their feet or their program choices because they make decisions about what they think they can give up and still get into that college. So I just want to be very clear that the capstone program, which is the equivalent of the full IB program, is also a very grueling program, a good program, but a very grueling program, and one that would also require the same level of encouragement and support because it's not an easy program and it does ask students to give things up as well. So, and also to comment on the previous question, more and more, yes, scores are optional to send to schools. In addition, we don't mandate that the students take the exams. So we're not a school that says you must take the exam or we will take away your transcript designation. So when kids go to college, transcript is probably the most weighty of the documents. We do not penalize students who opt not to take the test for whatever reason. There's many reasons that students don't take exams, test phobia, etc. So we're not a district that tells students, if you don't take the test, we will strip your transcript of the designation. So I think what that does, it further gives the space for students not to take the exams at the end of the year, which is, I'm not going to weigh on. I'm not going to weigh in on that because I think this is just an informative session today, but just note that. And now the other thing happening nationally is schools are moving more and more, and this was accelerated during COVID, towards what's called test optional.
Right.
So more and more the validation is on the transcript, and we don't know if that's a temporary kind of acceleration towards that trend. The trend was happening pre-COVID, but it certainly has accelerated where even the top in quotes, because I don't like to say top of the schools, but there's a nationally known group of schools have also moved into that space. They are basically, everyone's now test optional. It remains to be seen if that's going to stay permanent post-COVID, but I certainly do think more and more schools are going to stay in that space.
No, I think those are really important points. And I think as we discuss all of this, we have to think about the admissions process, where it's headed, not where it is today, because it certainly seems to be changing. And I'm sure those of us with younger children are going to have a very different experience than those whose kids have gone to college recently or even over the last decade. I have one last question, and that was, so we're teaching like 23 out of 61 of the available IB courses, a greater percentage of the AP courses. I'm just curious how the school makes a determination on which ones to teach and which ones not to teach.
So it's primarily based on student interest. When we became an IB school, we had to look at like which classes can we offer that will still satisfy the New York State requirements for graduation. Because obviously this is on top of the New York State diploma, right? So we had to look at the alignment between what's required for New York State graduation, what gives our students choice in the matter, and where will they actually still take classes. So for example, the languages are, we offer all of the languages at the advanced level. It's extremely like detailed, and I'll totally get into the weeds as much as you guys want about where we do the co-seating and where we don't do the co-seating. But it really boils down to where would students have to take 2 exams in 1 year? And we don't want that to happen at all. So we avoid it where we can. So like it used to happen for AP/IB chemistry, where the kids were taking 2 exams at the end of the year. Not ideal, but it is maximizing their opportunity for credits. It's stressful for them, it's hard, but it is maximizing the credit opportunity. World languages, that's one of the other rare places where you see 2 exams in the same year, because that's when the student's ready to take that assessment. Science, can't say science because I just gave you chemistry as the example, but physics and bio, that's an example where the students take AP at the end of year 1 and IB at the end of year 2. So we try to balance it as much as we can to cross-list it. But in terms of like, why do we offer AP Physics 1 and not Physics C, or why do we offer environmental and not another class that you could pick out of the menu? We just built it based on what our students want. So we look at it every year. We say, what would work here? Where do we need a challenge? What would our students want to take? And then put it into the catalog if we think it will work here.
All right, thank you.
I also think there's room for improvement and alignment to our strengths. I've been blown away by the arts program in this district. Literally the best arts program I've seen in 27 years. And across everything, right? Fine arts, performing arts, musicals, shows. We can do a strong, and I've been speaking with Dolly about this, making sure that we offer all the AP and IB options in the arts so that there's a strong alignment to what we're strong at already. And I think that that kind of synergy is something that we're already moving towards. We've discussed it. There's already a plan in place for some of that. So I think that's an area where it's not just student choice, but alignment of strength in addition to student choice. The other thing related to this is last year, Dan and I working with the district, I did a tweak or a fix to something that we thought should have been addressed, which was we weren't giving weighted. So AP and IB courses receive a weight of +9 on the transcript, and that's a common practice. So that's because it's a more challenging workload. There's more work in school, at home. The students taking a college level class. So in order to give an understanding to that challenge, high schools typically offer a weight to those classes so that a +9 to what the score would have been on the weighted transcript. Previous to last year, all the elective and AP and IB classes were not weighted. They were not giving, so we were not incentivizing or supporting students that were taking AP or IB classes in the arts or some of the other elective AP or IB classes. That's been fixed, but we don't know what that's going to do as it plays out over the next 4 years. And we've made sure that we advertise that to students going forward so that every AP and IB class gets weighted and students are aware that they're weighted.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have some questions from Trustee Galati. If I
Sure.
could give those, I also have questions, but
Go
let
for
me
it.
start with Rich's questions, who is sorry he could not be here tonight. I think, Kerry, you answered the first 2 questions, so I'm going to go on to 3.
I read your mind.
Not my mind, Rich's mind. And mine's not as good as his. His question was, how polarized is the faculty regarding AP versus IB? He said he was told by a faculty member who was supportive of the AP program that he was called the enemy by a colleague who was supportive of the IB program.
That's definitely a tough question to answer. I would say that any teacher that teaches the class is fully invested in the course. And it's really hard to get a true survey of how they truly feel, because if they've only taught AP, how can they give an opinion about IB? And if they only taught IB, how can they give an opinion about AP? So it's tough. We do know that people have varying feelings, and I would say that certain departments feel one way that is opposite of another.
Okay, I could tell you that I've had spoken with teachers that have taught both AP and IB, and some of them miss their AP courses because the content is a little different. So anyway, that's just something off the top of my head. Okay, so his other question was on page 10 of the presentation. The information presented about the 2 assessments to him are very misleading on a number of levels. The rather harsh implications that the AP doesn't test the student's ability to use acquired knowledge. The implication is that the AP assessment is rather shallow, is inaccurate. Both exams have multiple choice and free response section, and the only part of the IB exam which gives student choice is paper 3, which hasn't been given in 2 years and isn't being given in 2022 either. In terms of scoring the exam, teachers from across the country volunteer to score the free responses of the AP exam. The College Board does not do it themselves. His comment is he found page 10 to be quite slanted and a bit disturbing. I don't know if you want to address that.
Sure. I definitely meant no bias in this presentation. I wanted it to be truly unbiased as much as we could, looking at apples to apples. So to the point about student choice, every course includes that internal assessment, and that's where we're talking about students having choice in their coursework, right? So if they're taking a world language class, for example, students are presented with a series of images. They pick which one they're going to talk about. Then when they get to the writing segment of the exam, they have, again, a list of choices, and they pick the one that they're going to write about. And then, yes, you're right that the College Board does score the exams in the sense that the teachers are recruited from around the country. We are very fortunate to have a few examiners within our own faculty that are sent to wherever they need to go. Last year it was online, where they grade those exams like the calculus exams, they sit in a room and they look at number 3 and they grade number 3 over and over and over again. And then they move to another question. Those are teachers that are qualified and recruited by the College Board to then score the exams.
Can I just add one thing to that? I'm sorry. It's interesting that this came up because when we were going through the slides and getting ready for the presentation, we had guidance counselor helping us, and I actually took issue with the multiple choice because I didn't want, I wanted to make sure we gave fair treatment. So I think, I will look for more examples, before our next meeting of the assessments themselves, just those direct documents. We had some, and maybe we'll do more work on that for sure.
So I think that I've been looking at AP for a long time, and IB I'm new to. So AP, and just to be frank, these are competing systems, right? They are in almost, I hate to use the word market, but it is. They're competing systems in a free market. AP over the years has been moving towards a greater space for how thinking. And I think that if you look at an AP exam from 10 years ago, it was much more what and multiple choice driven. And I sorry to bring up my previous experience, but that's the baseline I have. But at my previous school, there was no initial AP physics. And when I tried to introduce it, the teachers pushed back saying it's a reductive course. Don't do that. And got quite a lot of flack for trying to bring the first AP physics level 1 because it was going to reduce thinking. And I actually went to the College Board and they said, we're working on making it different so that there is more thinking and less content. I also want to say that there's a space for content knowledge, usually in the 101 classes in college, and there's a space much more for holistic knowledge, typically in the upper level college classes. So we all know, if we've gone to our experience, are that first year history classes or chemistry have 100, 200, dare I say sometimes 400 students. And content is weighted much more. And then you go into the seminar classes and content, and the integration of that content plays out with greater strength. I think that if you ask about both programs 10 years ago, they were much more in a dichotomous, polarized space. I think both programs have made an effort to kind of move towards some middle ground because they understand the need for the market share. So you have AP courses moving towards much more integration of knowledge, and you have IB courses moving slightly more towards the content of knowledge. And that might not be a bad thing, because ultimately, when they go to college, they need to go through 4 years of college, and they need to be prepared for the lecture hall with 200 students, and they need to be prepared for the seminar class where they are one of 7 students, and the professor says, can you connect that idea to the other 200-page book you read last week?
I also think it depends on what course you're taking, right?
Yes,
So if you're doing a STEM course, it's definitely content based, and arguably that you need that content that AP is giving you to be successful at the next level of a STEM course. I think it's different when you're talking about a humanities course where it's not necessarily content based. Your writing courses, things of that nature.
And I think that there could be follow-up surveys across teachers by taking to see if that's an area of preference with the 2 exams. That's something that we could follow. That's something we could follow up on as well.
His also had a question which I also had, and then I'll go let someone else go, and then I'll come back to me at the end because I have a few questions yet, but maybe someone else will ask them. In the cost analysis, although it shows it's more expensive to run the IB program than the AP program, the expense of the PD for each is not mentioned in detail. What was the cost of the district in PD for IB versus the cost for PD for AP over the past 6 years? And I will tell you that before your time because I'm old, there was a line in the budget that talked about that was specifically for development of the IB program. At last count, when I got the number for the development of the IB program, and this is going back, I want to say I'm on the board 9 years, 8 years, 9 years, we were at $750,000. I will say that I have seen, when they want to be in person, I have seen the teachers down in Florida at a pretty nice resort. So, I mean, I'd want to be in person too. So,
Marianne, can I just clarify? Are you talking about sunk cost when we were ramping up the program?
no, all the cost altogether. A lot of it was
But
PD from
in
the
the past.
beginning. Yes, in the past. And that's the question over the 6 years. Do we have that number? And you may not have that tonight.
I actually, I added that because of the report I had done on PD expenses. I think it was when the pandemic started. We did a 5-year report, and you do see. So it's in the actual cost document. You do see that the IB PD is more expensive, for sure. One thing of note is that those costs are more in the beginning, and you do see it to start to go down. Now, part of that, I think, is because of the pandemic and how things were offered more remotely.
Right.
The other is a startup effect. When now that we're at a point where most of our teachers have been trained, there's less need to spend on that. That being said, if we had 2 new courses, 1 AP and 1 IB, if there was travel involved or if there was an in-person opportunity, that would be more expensive for the IB.
Well, I do know that's because the training is not done locally because I guess IB is not
That's the
offered
major
as
reason.
well.
Yeah.
So some of the training was in Houston, some of the training was in Florida, some of the training was in beautiful Toms River, New Jersey. And some was in the New York area. But I would assume that if you had those numbers, that it would be significantly more for PD for IB in terms of numericals. And I think the impression that people have is that those numbers are done and in the past, but they're not because they're continuing, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the numbers when we started were definitely higher because we were introducing the program. We were training teachers for the first time.
Yeah.
That we're definitely, now that we've had this core group of courses, we're spending much less on both AP and IB because we haven't introduced many new courses.
And I also know like a large number of years out, 2 to 3 years out, how many teachers are going to have to go for training. Like I know 2 years out, I've got 2 AP courses that are going to be revised. I know next year, I think I have 3 subject areas where I need an IB teacher trained. So that is definitely a recurring cost for the PD. Unfortunately, like you said, New York doesn't always offer the subject areas that we want, and then they end up having to go wherever. But this year we did restrict that we were only sending people for online training. And so that's something we could practice moving forward as well to save costs.
Maybe just as a follow-up, because I know that we want to keep this moving also, but we also want to go into the details of this. Maybe it's sufficient to say that we should look at actual costs for PD for each of the programs for the last, let's say, 2 years. And then, Carrie, if you have a projectability for the next year or two, that could be part of that report.
Yeah.
That would be good way to summarize that.
Yep.
Okay, good.
All right. So those were some of Rich's questions.
Okay.
So, but I don't want to.
Well, you're on a roll. You want to ask your questions?
No, go ahead and then I'll come back to me. I want someone else to have a chance to speak.
Okay.
Because my questions may be asked by someone else.
So whether it's AP or IB, I will work with Kerry and the district to make sure that the PD is as cost effective as it could be for either program. I think that ultimately the geography of the location determines a lot of the cost, but if we can find Toms River, we do Toms River. And if we,
I just think the most important thing for the information here is not what we want to do, or what has been done. This is about data. What's been done.
We have
that's what we need to know.
And I'm speaking about going forward.
Sure.
I will make sure that there's scrutiny in that.
I just know there's been a lot of discussion and evaluation of these things, and I think one of the main things we need to do in this conversation is not talk about the anecdotal or the projected or the stories. We need numbers. We need data, because we're making decisions based on perception. We're not making good decisions.
Right.
But thank you. It's going to be good. Maria, do you have any?
Yeah, I'll try. So Andrea alluded to the fact that I have a younger child. I have to admit that I haven't paid a lot of attention to IB and AP, which I think in some ways is an advantage because I'm not coming at it with any bias. I'm excited by the fact that we offer both programs and really interested to understand them both a lot better. So my questions are pretty basic, though. And although they also, I think, go to the retention question and some of the other topics you've touched on, you talked a lot about choice in so many areas, but I'm thinking more in terms of the fact that let me start over. Sorry, let me come at this with a different question first. I want to clarify, you said that students can take any AP, students can take any exam without course enrollment.
Mhm.
They can also take the course without taking the exam.
When we put the AP designation on your transcripts, we do require that you sit for the exam, and that's why we pay for it. So when a student's in AP World, we say, you need to take the exam in May. We're going to pay for it. But if you want to take AP Human Geography also, you have to pay for that one on your own.
But did you not say that if they ultimately don't sit for the exam, you don't remove the designation?
It's really just for extenuating
A
circumstances.
little bit of a loophole there, but okay.
Yes, it is a bit of a loophole where, like, we don't want to penalize our students for the work that they've done in that course all year.
Right.
I just want to say that other schools do take it off the student's transcript if they don't show up for that test that day. We have not made it our practice. Sure. Go ahead.
Carrie attended a meeting with me, I think it was 2 years ago, and we
It's
actually
pre-COVID.
asked all the directors of guidance in Nassau County who, if a student's absent from an AP exam and doesn't make it up, who takes it off their everybody raised their hand pretty much except for us. So
We were like, what?
that's really the policy. And coming from a prior district, we would have students not show up to an exam, cut the exam. Some students taking AP Lit knew they weren't going to get credit for it. They wouldn't show up, and the designation would get taken off their transcript, and we don't do that. It's more student-centered. It's more equitable, in our opinion. But it's more, if a student's in the exam, the expectation is they're going to take the test at the end of the year. If there's an extenuating circumstance, which we've had, somebody gets COVID or something like that, can't come to the test, we're not going to take it off the designation off their transcript.
But
It is very positive. It's a very positive thing that we're doing here.
so I'm struggling. I'm sorry, you guys are so far ahead of me, but I feel like my ignorance is really too basic. But I think I got most of that. But so the designation is simply a notation on the transcript that says this student took this AP class.
Like, it literally says the letters AP World. And so another school would take that AP off and say you took world history
Right.
that
Now,
year.
so the college, looking at the transcript, in this instance, where the student did not take the exam.
Here in our school?
Yeah, I'm sorry?
In our school or another school?
A college to which this student has applied, when the student's North Shore transcript is sent to the college college is not aware that the student did not take the exam.
Correct, because we do not take it off their transcript, and we also do not report their AP or IB scores on our transcripts.
Okay, and again, that goes to the question to the point that they can choose to send their scores later and hope to get credit for them.
Correct.
So because this is a question pre-COVID, post-COVID to some degree, right? So just to reiterate, and I think these are questions that everyone watching has. So I thank you for asking them. So we as a district, just to reiterate, do not penalize students who don't take the exams, and we keep their score on the transcript, and we keep the designation on the transcript, and we keep the weight on the transcript. They keep their grade on the transcript, right?
Yeah,
so
you didn't mean score. Okay,
right.
so
Not the score on the test, because that's optional for them to send or not to send.
okay.
They send that as a score report to the college if they want to. So, and in IB, because the exams happen typical senior year, there's the perception of there's penalty or not, like if you do it or not. was lower before, but it's lower in general for both AP and IB now because most schools are now test optional for all these things.
Thanks for making that
Yeah,
connection.
so-
I did want to go to that.
I know we're not supposed to weigh in with like preference. I do think that's a good thing because it disassociates the stress on the exam from the rigor of the class.
Yeah.
And I think that's in line with North Shore values of the test isn't the end all be all. It's the learning within the course.
Yeah, I'm
So-
in
so
agreement.
I think that us being the outlier in that meeting that Mr. Doherty was referring to is something that we should be proud of. I
Yeah.
think that that's something that I recommend. It is not a recommendation meeting, so I apologize that we do because it shouldn't be punitive. Kids are test phobic, and then they think everything rides on this test now.
Yeah.
And now this will strip my transcript, which post-COVID has become much more valuable,
Mhm.
of that designation.
Yeah, I'm quite convinced. I just want to be clear on the details. So one last point on that. Sorry, they are still getting a grade in the class.
For all their coursework.
Sorry,
For all of their
for all of
coursework.
their
Their
coursework.
tests,
Just-
their quizzes, their homework, participation. That's what goes on their transcript.
Okay. So that does make it much clearer and does, in my mind, provide much greater justification for not removing the.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I will tell you that I came from a different experience and I was like, we need to take it off. You didn't show up for that test. And then I sat in that meeting and I was like, wait a second. No, we're actually really doing the right thing.
Yeah.
The students did put a lot of work and a lot of grit into that course.
Yeah.
Why should we remove the designation? It's up to them. Maybe something happened that day that they couldn't show up that day. They couldn't make it that day.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be able to get credit for it.
Right.
But they will get into where they want to go because they took the course.
Right, if you miss the test, you're being penalized for 180 days of AP or IB work, right? For one day that you missed. And
Right.
that's just not right.
So I'm very proud of us that we
Yeah.
don't do that.
And I think it speaks to the point of how colleges value the grade in the exam, which is a full year's worth of work compared to a 3-hour test. And that was clear in our surveying of colleges that in terms of admissions, the grade in the course over a full year is much more important and relevant than a 3, 4, 5 on an AP exam or 6 or 7 on an IB exam. So
From my experience at a university, and not working in admissions, but being familiar with the process, I know that's true, and it speaks to good decision making here. I believe that. It's also, it is part of a much larger discussion. I think I'm actually going to stop there. My questions go to I think a much larger discussion, and it might be when we get into it, part 2. Also, I'm really interested in hearing what you ultimately recommend. But I want to say belated thank you for this. It's just tremendous. I did also poke around some of the data out there, and it's easy to get lost in the weeds, even if like me, you don't fully understand everything you're looking at. But thank you all for a tremendous job here.
Yeah,
So-
certainly.
so far.
Thank you. Any points you guys are bringing up tonight, questions that we have, we're happy to bring back the information for
great.
January 6th.
Thank you. Lisa, did you want to?
My questions were answered. I just want to say thank you so much for putting this together. It must have been an enormous amount of work, and the backup detail was so comprehensive. So I just want to say thank you also.
Great.
You're welcome. I really am proud to bring this information to you guys.
Mary, go
Oh,
ahead.
do you want to go? It's fine. I don't care. Okay, so I want to talk about STEM and that. So I think one of the problems with being the IB diploma program is that you have to take 2 years, right, in order to complete the program in your math and your science or your science. You have to take 2 years, and it limits your time. All right, so if you're going to be an engineer, for instance, it's very difficult to be in the IB diploma program, which may be why you have 1 year 8, another year 10, and that's really, we're emphasizing STEM here. You want to build a science research classroom. So for those students who are in interested in a STEM program, what are we doing to accommodate them so they can be an IB diploma candidate? Because on your transcript, what we saw here was that the most competitive curriculum is what they want to see. In order to be designated as in the most competitive curriculum, you have to have an IB diploma program, be an IB diploma candidate on your transcript. All right, that's the most competitive now on the transcript. So those 8 or 10 kids have the most competitive designation. What are we doing for those kids who want to do a STEM program where that is virtually impossible for them to do?
So we currently offer biology and physics at the higher level, which does mean that they have to take the course for 2 years, which is a challenge because if a student is going on the biology pathway and then they get to senior year and they go, okay, I want to go to this university and they want physics on my transcript, the student has to either double up in science or decide to no longer be a diploma candidate. So that's been an obstacle for us that we really have to take some further looks at moving forward.
Okay, so that was why.
Do you mind if I just ask a quick follow-up question on that? Because Carrie, you had mentioned that when you asked that question of the schools, that what they had said was, yes, of course, and I'm a former college admissions officer, so I was on that side of the table for a long time ago. Speaking of being
bless.
older, yeah, a long time ago. But you mentioned the most rigorous curriculum offering is certainly what every school is looking for. They want to see how students have challenged themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought you had said that whether it was IB or AP, they didn't see a distinction between that.
We asked them, are our students at a disadvantage because we offer both?
Meaning you can't reach the capstone and, I mean, we don't offer the capstone, but you can't reach the pinnacle of both. But if you're pursuing one of, essentially, if our students have a curriculum, for those students, of course I should mention,
Sure.
We're not talking about every student. There are all kinds of students having great outcomes without pursuing any of these programs, and that should be mentioned. So we're focusing on this, but just for reference, great outcomes for many students without this. But since this is the topic, for those students taking those, again, for lack of a better term, +9 courses, whatever those +9 courses are, is considered essentially the most rigorous program offered.
Yeah, I'm talking about something different. I'm talking
Yeah,
about I'm talking about the designation on the transcript. Obviously, a student who takes multiple IB or AP courses is doing a competitive curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to be designated in the most competitive curriculum in North Shore schools on your transcript, you have to be an IB diploma candidate.
Well, I'm asking if that's what was borne out from the college
I
admissions.
think if I could speak to it. So I think the IB has determined what they view as the most competitive curriculum, and that would be the IB diploma. I think for students when they apply to college, if I'm applying to be an engineer or applying to go into a combined medical program, that college may determine something else to be the most competitive program. So they may prefer to see you take, physics in senior year instead of taking IB biology for a second year. And that may help that student get into college more than completing the diploma program. And these are conversations that our counselors have with students every year. A big conversation in the junior meeting is, what are you thinking you want to major in college? And then what's the best path to get there? And sometimes it's the IB diploma and sometimes it's not. And those are decisions that I think have led to Andrea's question earlier, and I referenced it in my earlier answer. Students may make a decision not to complete the diploma because it may not get them to where they want to be, or they don't. We have many students. We had a couple of diploma candidates at Georgia Tech, right, which is a huge STEM school. I think we had 2 last year. And they chose to double up in science in senior and make that decision. So I do think it's something we could look at when we make recommendations. Are there ways systemically to make it easier for a STEM candidate to get that diploma? I know other schools do things differently. I don't want to jump ahead. I think that's part 2 of our presentation. But
Right. I was just talking about the designation on the transcript and what we're doing to accommodate our STEM students, because I think it's a big problem for the STEM students on it. Because what the math, you don't have an HL, you only have the SL. So you go from the SL math into AP Calc, either 1 or 2, right? We don't have the higher level. So in order to get your science, if you want to do both HL physics and HL biology, for 2 years, you're doing higher level physics, higher level biology and higher level math, right? But that's not even in the diploma program. To get the diploma program, you're doing these things simultaneously, which you wouldn't have to do that in the in an AP world. And then we also have the issue that you may not have you may have students graduating with 3 years of biology and no physics. So I think those are issues that need to be addressed. That was part of my point. And the other part was the designation on the transcript. But I would agree with you. You don't need to be an IB diploma candidate to be successful or to get into a good university.
I do think that those are things that need to be addressed. And I think I've been speaking with Steve about how to address that because it's a very valid point to have students take 2 intense science classes for 2 years is a lot to ask a high school student. And I think that there are ways, we've been talking about ways of addressing that, but it's going to require some changes to this, to like what gets offered and in what year. But there are ways to address that issue. But I do think that as it stands now, it does put undue stress on the IB diploma candidates that have to take 2 years, 2 sciences for 2 years. As far as college admissions, my observation has been that you neither need capstone nor IB full diploma. And I know I'm going counter. We're trying to convince kids to take to get into the most competitive schools. I think that they are looking, each program. So if it's engineering, they're looking for highest level calculus. So HL or BC, not AB.
Right.
And highest level physics.
Right.
And if you're looking for a life science school like a CALS at Cornell, you're looking at higher level bio or AP bio. So, and the other thing that I've noticed over the last few years is that there's a greater value on experiential pieces. So engineering programs are starting to value a great more robotics programs participation in computer science classes. So when a computer science and robotics program participation is combined with the higher level physics and the higher level math, BC specifically, or HL math and IB, that tends to be a stronger pathway, more so than the full capstone or the full program. So I think that it is important to note that and same thing in life sciences is the research piece. Kids who do research, because both research and or participation in something where kids design, build robots is a piece that's iterative. They can talk to it in interviews and shows a process and an arc of learning that extends beyond the classroom. So I've seen a greater emphasis on the combination of those experiential pieces and less emphasis on like completing the whole 2 things. How that's going to continue to go, I don't know. But I have seen that to your point, they are not necessary to get into the top schools.
Right. And the bottom line is you have what this year, 7 students enrolled in physics HL, and you do have a science research program. So you don't really need to have the research component necessarily in an IB program, because we do have it in another opportunity for students. They don't have to be in those programs to do it. So if you have 7 kids enrolled and you have a science research program, I don't know. Does that make sense that you have 7 students? Just something to think about for the next time. Does it make sense to run a class for 7 students when you've got a science research program and you've got, in some science classes at the Regents level, you have 28 kids in the class, or 25. Usually science, it's 24, 25 because of the labs, right? You can't really put 28. But is it really fair to the Regents kid to have 25 kids in the class, right? And have your smart kids, right? Your really top, not that Regents kids aren't smart, but your top, your top students, in a classroom with the teacher where there's 7 kids in the classroom. I mean, we're one of our things is equity, right? And equity goes across a lot of lines. And to me, having 25 kids in a Regents class and 7 kids in an HL physics class, that's not really, an equitable use of our
Yeah,
resources.
I think we should.
I really don't
Slides
think
had-
that's, I don't think that's what we saw in the
Yeah, that's not the
data.
data, and we want to. I
don't
mean,
wanna
that's
suggest
that's
that at
part 2,
all.
if anything.
The Regents class average was 12 students, I believe, and the IB class average was 12 students in the PowerPoint she just
I mean,
had.
average. It's
Well,
a difference.
average.
Average is average. It's not
We can
Average
look at all
tells the story
classes
of what's
across-
happening in our schools.
So we have
average.
some of the biggest classes this year are APIB classes. And I think that in most schools, for the higher, so AP Physics C, which is the second AP Physics, typically enrolls very few kids. Like that would be the smallest class in most high schools, because that comes after AP Physics 1, then AP Physics 2, and then there's AP Physics C, which tends, fairly or unfairly, tends to kind of be a prerequisite for some of the top engineering schools. So the schools then have a choice of, and do we offer it or not offer it, but they tend to be classes of very few kids. The classes such as AP Physics C, just because that's the nature of that class, and that's a decision that as a community we'd have to make.
Yeah, I think these are good questions to ask, but I want to make sure that we're not going too in the weeds with any of this, and we're looking at the overall numbers, and we're keeping things moving along, but also recognizing that the data you provided with deliberation was agnostic. You wanted to give us the information to look at, and taking taking an example, looking at different things is probably not what we want to do too much more of today.
Can I just clarify one thing on the diploma
Sure.
candidate point? So a student going into science does not necessarily need to take 2 double sciences for 2 years. So they could do IB biology for 2 years and then take the first part of physics in senior year. So we do have, that's normally the path for our IB diploma candidates. I just want to clarify that. Just so
yeah,
there's
it
no
just gets a little
confusion
bit more
with-
difficult.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
disputing that.
it's a
I'm just
little bit
clarifying
more
it's not
difficult.
2 years of 2
Okay.
sciences.
Marion, did you have other questions?
I have some other things, but go ahead, Sarah.
Well, okay, Sarah. I mean, we want to kind of ask her questions and move forward. So, Sarah, you ready? I'm not. I'm cutting you on. Let's go.
I'll do my best. Most importantly, thank you for the presentation. It was really an astonishing amount of data that the board received, and I think we all really appreciate your compiling that for us. And I think it's obvious that the board spent a lot of time trying to digest it before this presentation. So we really appreciate that. This is more theoretical, so I'm not asking for a question now, but the questions that we'd have thus far made me think that if we wanted more kids to have the IB diploma per se, and I am not suggesting that is actually the goal, but if it were, because there are a lot of different models that IB schools deploy, right? Like some have models where virtually everyone's getting an IB diploma, and so obviously that would really change the courses you're offering, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just curious, like if that were the goal, like what changes would we be talking about making, right? Or of course we can decide that it's not the goal, that it's really the rigor of the classes and kids taking the mix that works for them best, and it's not a goal. I also wanted to say that I had this question too, which is, would you say that our schools encourage kids, like genuinely encourage kids to take AP and IB classes, or would you say we're more neutral?
Want to take that one?
I can take that one, yeah. I think when a student meets with their counselor, the counselor tries to encourage them to take the most competitive program that they can handle. So I think you're looking at, like, we also focus on the whole child and SEL. And I think we're trying to strike a balance of what's the most challenging program that student can take and find success and still get some sleep and still play a sport and be involved in other things. So I think, and I've observed counselor, scheduling meetings and junior meetings with students, and I do think that, we have one of the advantages of North Shore when I came here is that, they have a small caseload. So they really know their students and they do a good job. They meet with every student and they invite the parent in to talk about those schedules and what makes sense for them. And they do try to encourage students to challenge themselves in areas of strength. So it may not be, let's take 6, advanced level classes, but what are you strong in? Can you challenge yourself in that area? And maybe we back off here. So I think those conversations are happening, but I wouldn't say it's a one size fits all conversation. It's definitely individualized to the student, but we try to steer them in that direction. And Mr. Contreras referenced the arts and the elective advanced placement and IB, opportunities that we have. And sometimes those are great options for a student to say, hey, maybe, IB history isn't for you, but let's try AP Psych, or you're really into the arts. Let's try, an IB arts class or something like that. So those conversations are happening.
Thank you. I really appreciated the data that you gave us with regard to equity, and that you gave us the percentage of kids that were classified, 504s, ENL, that were involved in AP and IB classes. And I think you said it was about 16% versus 24% in our overall population.
Right.
So that certainly struck me as very positive, and obviously that just encompasses a very wide range of students. I was wondering if we had data that looked at equity from any other lens than that. And I understand that could be challenging just because of the numbers involved, but if we had anything else, I think that would be interesting equity-wise to see also. I think the other thing is, for several years now, we've looked at engagement data across a number of instruments, and the board has been concerned about a lot of the engagement numbers that we've seen. And I could really have overlooked something in the data. I think I would say engagement was definitely addressed in the sense of, like, we talked about kids that were involved in these courses, the extent to which they went on to college and what their experience was there. But I'm very interested if there's any other overlay in this data with the engagement data, which has been weighing on us so heavily recently.
Not sure on that one. I think I have to come back to that one. I think I need to go take a second look at it to see where I can pull that out based on the data that I have, like maybe looking at the alumni responses and digging a little deeper there. I'll come back to that one.
Okay, thank you. And then just very minor points. I just thought it was terrific that we offer theory of knowledge to everyone, right? It's a terrific class. It's a very different kind of class. And it's just a terrific opportunity for our students. And I think in a lot of ways, the professional development that we have to engage in to offer courses along these levels, in a lot of ways, I think it's a positive thing. I think we've tried in the budgeting process to put as much emphasis as we can on professional development, that this is an important part of what any professional organization would do. And so I didn't want us to leave this meeting with a negative view of professional development costs, because I think we've said, over the years, a lot of things to indicate that it's actually important to us. So do we want to know differences and impacts and how it plays out in the budget? Absolutely. But I don't want to imply that we don't think it's critical to the work that we do here, that we do invest in professional development.
Understood.
And thank you.
Oh, that reminded me
Thank
of
you,
a
sir.
question. Theory of knowledge, and it may have been in the data, I may have missed it. How many students who are not IB diploma candidates actually take theory of knowledge? If you know, if not.
I just know this current semester, it's only diploma candidates in there. Last year, though, and in the coming semester, starting in January, there are students that are not diploma candidates. And like, for example, I just went to all of the English 10 classes today, Regents and Honors, And every diploma candidate that came with me to talk about their experience is like, TOK is a reason to take the class. You just talk about all the topics that you wanted to talk about that you never got to in your education. You learn how to have discussions and talk about your opinions. So it's open to every student, but it also was a misconception when I started here that students thought it was only available to diploma candidates.
And then the community service part. You know, we used to have a program where the kids actually were required to do community service. And I know they have to do community service as part of the IB. Do we have any idea of what percentage of our students, even without those requirements, engage in community service?
We can definitely find that out.
Yeah,
For
there
the
was
next
just
meeting.
hundreds
That's
of-
Actually,
interesting.
yeah, there was just some stuff about that. It was even in the local papers and talking about the number of kids that we had that had completed more than
More
like
hours, yes, but I'm
100
just
hours
wondering.
and more than
Yeah.
Can I-
500
A lot-
hours.
I know there's a
Really
lot of hours.
Astonishing. Yeah,
Can-
that
can-
would be great.
I just want to
Yeah, I
speak to
just
that
would like
because
no.
this community service here done through programs and not through programs. So like the work that Julia Salat does, the work, and I'm just naming her, and there's a ton of other people. Miss Holleran.
But it just
There's-
happens so many different ways.
I
that's
Right.
probably in this school have seen more community service without a mandate than schools that have community service with a mandate, where students do it because it's a check off.
Right.
They are, you know, the
This
number
makes
of
sense.
where, you know, it's the points of light. It's everyone
Mhm.
doing this because they want to do it as individuals, and it's not a mandate.
But
and
it's also encouraged and valued.
it
It's
is encouraged,
encouraged.
valued, celebrated.
Supported, yeah.
And also for the in-person, because I do think that we need to be more cost effective, but I do think, just as I said for children, there is no substitute for in-person learning for anyone of any age. People need to learn in person, whether they're a child or an adult, and I think that we need to figure out how to be more cost effective. But the PDs for teachers online are the reasons that I don't find learning online for children the same way. We're just not wired to learn that way.
Thank you. Okay. Marion, did you have other questions or? Okay. No,
I'm good.
okay. So I had a couple. I know we're moving on here, so I'm going to try to race. And these are almost more comments because we're really leading it. You've given so much data to us. And I don't want to focus on conclusions, but I'd like to focus on maybe some synthesis of that data to help us in our next decision. We know about the values, the shared values of this district. When we come up with our part two, I'm looking at Chris too, I really would like to see a relationship between those shared values and the recommendation, whatever it is. I also, moving on to my next point, because what we focus on here at North Shore, outcomes obviously matter, and we're spending a lot of time talking about outcomes, but we are very much a district that identifies its success by the means, not the ends. Their high school journey is not about getting somewhere else. It's about using those unique formative years to train their minds, to learn something, to identify themselves and what's important to them. And so I think the skills we give those kids now is much more of a long-term investment than maybe getting credit in a specific class, although that is certainly important down the road. So I value that. I certainly took advantage of that when I went to college, from AP scores that were offered to me that I was able to get some marks on. But I don't think that should necessarily be the focus. It's about what they're learning here, because the dividend they're going to get from that long term and what they're doing here and the way they learn to be critical thinkers is going to pay a lot more. And so that was important to mention in terms of the analysis. I guess from the data, the answer may be we don't know. But I'd like to get some better sense in the next session of whether or not, even if we can't know, that will be the conclusion, AP or IB, a combination thereof, prepares students better for success in college. One or the other, the combination of both, if we're hurting our students by offering both, by distracting them, that would help me. I also noticed in the data, as a separate note, our scores have been improving over the last 4 years. When you look at the average score, the scores in 21 were higher than the average, meaning it's pulling our average up almost across the board, not universally. And here I am talking about how the tests don't necessarily matter, but the tests are an indication of this to some degree. So I don't know whether that is because we're just getting more in the groove. The PD is really taking effect. It's certainly not that kids born in, kids graduating in 21 are more talented than kids born in 20, of course. But there has been that progression, and it was noted. So I think that's something that is worthwhile, that we are, as an institution, moving in the right direction with this entire program. So I thought that was worth noting for sure. And I also, I guess, wanted to ask maybe the biggest question that we haven't really discussed all night, but is hugely important to all of this, is the stress factor on these kids. And we talk about opportunity cost, not opportunity cost for the district in terms of dollars and cents, but opportunity costs for these kids and what maybe they're not getting. Obviously, for some kids, taking those 6 classes and getting that diploma program is what's right for them. But for other kids, taking 3 and being in a play or being in a sport, or for other kids taking 1 or taking AP or whatever else it is, that may be what's best for them. I'd like to have some inclusion in the recommendation of the relationship between this rigorous program and student wellness.
Okay.
So I guess those aren't questions. Those are just kind of things to follow up on.
Points.
It. Your pen is it's moving
where
fast.
I'm taking all the
I
notes.
was asking that with the engagement question.
It's
but okay.
engagement is a huge part of it. And that's what I've got. I want to thank my trustees for doing all this work. Dr. Titone and everyone in the team, all the directors, everyone. It was really good work, excellent work. We've done a lot of analyses of programs as goals, and this is as comprehensive as I've seen us do ever. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And while I certainly hope people are here for that, because it is what we do here, I am certainly aware the comments from the public is always a fun part of our meeting. So we will open it up for that right now. If you'd like to participate in public comment, come to the podium, say your name and town of residence, and we'd love to hear from you. And of course, I should just mention to our administrators, again, you're welcome to stay, but you're also, we know you're quite busy, and this is a real crunch time part of the year. So you're certainly more than free to head out if you like, but we're happy to have you. Thank you, Natalie.
That's okay. You can call me that. Natalie Zaresky. I'm from Seacliff. So I want to just offer a little comment. It's actually an unintended consequence, or let me back up. So my son is in 5th grade. He's move it up. That's better. It sounds better. My son is a 5th grader at Seacliff Elementary. He's in Miss Popala's course. And one of the unintended, and I'm a big fan of the no homework or low homework or less homework, however it's termed, because I am concerned about anxiety. My son is an anxious student, an anxious kid. However, one of the unintended consequences of our no homework policy is that I don't know what he's doing in school. And what I'm finding out is that homework was a way of communicating to parents what kids were doing in the classroom. So this is not a criticism, because I reached out to his teacher and we worked out a way for me to find out. I'm a big fan of parents being involved in education. My son was in remote learning last year. I got a very firsthand look at what he was doing and really appreciated supporting him in that learning. So as we move forward, I'm not saying let's add homework to the agenda, but I'm saying let's talk about replacing that communication that homework served. And part of that is partnering with parents, or parents partnering with teachers, and having that communication. So let me give a couple examples. Cameron has a hub as part of his class. It's an online portal. I'm a huge fan of online. I do think we're wired to learn online, but that's different. I won't get into that. So I get a good snapshot of what's going on in this class. And it's helpful because it's updated. On top of that, Ms. Popala put together suggested things for him to do at home and is incentivizing him. Here are examples. Here's what's going on. We just got an email. with what's going on in class. And so when we take something away, even if it's beneficial, let's look at what else it was doing. I miss that communication. I miss that quick glance. Like, what are you struggling with? How can I help you? So just a comment, not a criticism, but something that I'm hoping is a model that I can showcase for other parents, and that we can look at replacing the anxiety of homework with communication that brings parents into the process.
So just, I grew up in a house. My mom was a special ed teacher in PS 20 and PS 25 in Flushing, and she saw such a direct correlation between student success and parent involvement. There's absolutely no question that is certainly, having a warm home, having food. There are many reasons that correlate with success, but parent involvement is one of them. So I absolutely agree with that.
Right.
The homework has been discussed here so much that I actually remember Mrs. Finder telling me the number of the policy, so I was able to pull it up. And I thought I would just go through the policy.
Perfect.
It's policy 4730. Homework shall be assigned according to several guidelines, and I won't read all of that. But again, it's all in line, policy 4730. First grade is 10-minute, kindergarten is not listed.
Right.
First grade is 10 minutes, second grade is 20 minutes, third through fifth is 30 minutes.
Right.
So no homework policy is a scary term to some. So I want to make sure that we're all
right.
That's not the policy of no homework. Yeah.
No, and he does 30 minutes.
Okay.
Part of what my concern is that I don't see as much as what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was me reaching out to the teacher and saying, hey, what's going on in class? How can I help? But I was motivated to do that. And I'm concerned that some parents may not take that initiative. And so I would love to see us encouraging that type of outreach to parents.
I always want parents to be a teacher with us. Maybe at least, if not first then second. We'll share first place in terms of teacher. I hope I'm not putting Dr. Zublionis on a spot here, but something we've worked on this year is something called forward-facing curriculum maps. An awareness of those, looking at those and seeing what's going on in the coursework would prompt conversation to the nth degree. Wow, I see that this year you're doing such and such.
Right.
When are you doing this? When are you doing that? You might want to take a look at those, and I think that those could be that kickoff for the conversation. I don't know where we are with them. And
yeah, no, we did send those out, and I think what you're talking about, Mr. Reese, is such a good complement to that. It's because those maps are kind of like the aerial view, like the 10,000 foot view of a whole course.
Right.
And to have that ongoing weekly, daily piece of how do I know, what is going on. And it's such an interesting point about how homework did provide that. So we're trying to manage homework, but then, losing that communication piece.
As I said, it's an unintended consequence. I don't want to have his backpack filled with textbooks and hours and hours. That's not the point here. The point is I didn't value what came with the textbooks, ironically, which was an idea of what he was struggling on or struggling with and how I could help coach him. And so, as I said, I found a model, or actually Ms. Papala created a model that works well for me. And I just wanted to offer that as my experience and encourage, not that it's policy, but it becomes part of the culture.
I am so reluctant to say this because you've been so complimentary. I really appreciate that. But because you're the first speaker, I get to say it to you. And, in case anyone else has a concern about it, we prefer not to mention teacher names.
Oh, I apologize.
Once again, I'm reluctant to say it because everything you said was highly complimentary. But as most of the regular audience members know, we prefer, my student, my child's teacher, my child's counselor, just so that we don't get into personnel and we stick to,
I will restrain myself, but I think
in
that
private conversation,
in
private conversation, I hope you won't. But thank you so much for understanding.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's why I can't hear it. Okay. So several months ago, the board, you, had attorney Jacob S. Feldman send me a cease and desist letter on April 2021 for comments I made in an online community forum. And then the letter he drafted was widely distributed via email by the current superintendent of the North Shore Central School District to everyone on their email distribution, which is a few thousand people. In the letter, Feldman disparaged me of making statements that were patently false, malicious, and demonstrably false, provided a statement of me publishing false information, defamation, and of me making every false and defamatory social media post. Well, what ended up happening is there was a decision by the New York State Education Department Chief Privacy Officer, and it confirmed that these employees violated NYSED privacy laws and the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. That's the federal privacy laws. What I published was deemed accurate and true, and when I made the statements that school employees had violated privacy laws, it was totally true. The superintendent, district clerk, 7 board trustees, the president of the teachers union, and attorney Jacob S. Feldman clearly didn't understand New York State and federal privacy laws. I read them the first time and understood them. So I read them 3 more times. And I said, I think I understand this. And then I asked my friend Paul, I said, Paul, you read this. Does this make, he goes, yeah, it looks like they violate privacy laws. Feldman didn't understand an opinion letter written by the New York State on Committee on Open Government, which he referenced in answering the complaint. Then he made false and misleading statements that privacy laws had changed and that the school district employees' actions were fully consistent with the governing law and guidance that were applicable at the time. What Feldman wrote was not true or accurate. He got it totally wrong. But that didn't stop him from making a mockery of me in the community. Feldman drafted a letter at your direction that was widely distributed by Girozo and has defamed my character and led to online attacks by members of this community. You need to make an apology to me. You need to make a public apology to the same people that you sent that letter to. Do you understand that the employees don't respect you? They don't respect the board. That's why this is happening. That's why they're allowed to break the laws of New York State and get away with it for who knows how long. You were placed here with the support of the teachers union so they can get what they want. Not all of you, but most of you. Get what they want, not what the community needs, which is why the cost of North Shore schools is so high and this community's property taxes are so high. Thank you.
I had a couple responses. First, I just wanted to ask, Chris, today was National History Day at the middle school.
Yes.
Can you just tell us a little bit about what that was like today?
Sure. We had and the entire middle school cafeteria filled with exhibitions, websites that students had designed, presentations, performances that were dedicated to a theme that was determined by National History Day. Mr. Dayhill, Mr. Gordon, other teachers in the social studies department set it up, and it was in person again this year.
And what percentage of the 8th graders participated?
The whole grade.
So it's an assured experiences and there were different categories in which they filed their report. How did that work?
So the students get to choose, and they determine the topic. They get to determine how they demonstrate their understanding. And I was there. Mr. Menchel was there. We had a lot of adults. Miss Ritter was there. I didn't see you, but you were there. And other teachers in the middle school really got to see students. And we evaluated. We provided feedback and had to have amazing conversations. I was there for 2 hours today. It was amazing.
Did you have any favorite topics the kids came up with? Don't mention the one that came out of my house, but
Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
There were a lot of topics on on diplomacy and on the Cold War. There was a Berlin Wall one that was amazing, and they had President Reagan speaking on tape about tearing down the wall, Mr. Gorbachev to tear down the wall. So I think the students are acting as historians. They're empowered. It's performance-based. I talked to the teachers a lot about how the authentic audience of the teachers being there, they were saying did so much more than just presenting in class. So it was just amazing to see, and doing it with some COVID restrictions, doing it with the lunch line coming in and people being told to put their masks on, and all of these things that kids are dealing with now. They're still doing it. It was amazing.
Mhm.
and the kids were happy to do it.
I ask just because I think it's important when we are faced with this endless, petty, constant distraction. And I apologize for putting you on the spot. You didn't know I was going to ask you about this today. To remember what we're doing here, and remember what our schools are about, and remember why we're having a 2-hour presentation about what our kids should be doing in class and what they should be learning, and what 8th graders are doing, that they're acting as historians, and that what's happening in our classes and in those things isn't just what's happening at all schools, but that the amount of thought and effort and time we spend on planning our curriculum is what makes North Shore one of, if not the best places to go to school on Long Island. I think that's lost in a lot of this criticism. So I just wanted to pivot there because I think it's important to have some equal time about what we're actually doing here and the work that we're actually doing here. In terms of the specific questions that Jerry Romano brought to the table just now, I think it is accurate to say that our attorney's interpretation of that statute was not found to be accurate. That's certainly true. That, of course, was also found to be determined by our lawyer when they denied the subsequent request. So this problem was resolved in 2020. Now, I appreciate that Mr. Romano and Paul, his friend, wanted to go and to find and to do those things. And that's their right as citizens. As I said before many times from this podium, I believe in the FOIA laws. People have a right to understand what's going on in this community. But in terms of that cease and desist letter, the specific focus of that cease and desist letter was about defamatory comments made by a valued employee of this district. There is nothing to change or apologize for. In fact, it still continues. We have a district clerk who followed the recommendation of our council. Our district clerk is one of the most capable people that I have met personally and worked with personally. She is not an attorney, however, and she should not be making up the law. I can't imagine anyone in this district would want the district clerk to be overriding the recommendation of the district attorneys. That's lunacy. And I'm not an attorney either. And we have an extremely talented attorney on our board as well, but that's not the role that she fills here. We use district counsel to advise us how to proceed. And so in this case, district counsel did not advise, and their recommendation was not borne to be correct by the chief privacy officer. Now, we all have the internet. I try not to look that much, but certainly things come my way. We live in a world where there are legal disputes that come up. People have different interpretations of the law, whether that's over a property dispute, whether that's over someone suing someone or a divorce or all the various things people go to court for. Lawyers go to court and they argue different sides, or in this case, they go to an arbitrator and the chief privacy officer and go to different sides. And one side is right and one side is deemed to be wrong. That does not make the losing side incompetent, corrupt, or all the various other things that are said online. We're certainly not happy that we've been defending this and believing this because we were advised by counsel and it turned out not to be true. But I also have to say, in terms of analogies, this is Al Capone's vault. Remember that show where there's all this hype and the fight to get this policy changed that was already changed. Dr. Dolan discussed it in his superintendent's report earlier tonight, the esteemed Dr. Dolan, and you're back, and explained why we had the interpretation as we did, and it was not borne out to be accurate, and we proceed from there. And this is what happens. But I think overall, we had an audit report tonight, which, by the way, was open to the entire public. And it showed that in our annual audit report for the claims audit for the entire year, we had 36 errors. 36 errors. Now, someone could stand at that podium and say, we had 36 errors. That's 36 cases of corruption and illegality and wrongness. Or you can look and say, well, it's a 0.22% error, and that claims auditor says she uses that as the gold standard or the example for all of the other districts that she works for. And she says that it's an extraordinary job that we do. So everything is a question of perspective. From my perspective, what we're doing in our classes and the integrity of the people that works here is something worth defending. We're aware, Jerry, are you still here, that your group calls itself Friends of the District. There are a lot of words for what people do when they want to cause this amount of pain and difficulty and unpleasantness and division. Friends is not one of those words. This is a more difficult place to work and to live because of the efforts of your group. So I understand you're crowing. We saw the picture in Newsday. I was quoted in the article. I said, whatever the law is, I want to follow it. And that certainly stands for the position of this board. But to see you up there crowing about this, to bring people down, is just not what friendship to this district is. So that's my take on that. And I guess we'll move on to the next public comment. Please, from all the way over there. It's okay.
Hi, I'm Andrew Cross, and I'm from Glen Head. I have a number of hats. I'm a teacher for 29 years. I'm an AP World History teacher here, and I am an IB Year 2 teacher. But I'm actually here to speak as a parent. So I know we're doing a part 1 and a part 2. I didn't know it was a sequel kind of thing like the Godfather movies or Star Wars. So I'm going to leave my part 2 comments as a teacher maybe for next time. And by the way, I've been here 29 years. If you guys have questions about IB or AP and you want to talk to me, I know a lot. So I'm open to talking to anyone about it. But I just wanted to say my son graduated last year and he had an IEP. And he had significant processing issues, and he took both AP and IB. And he found in AP, where he did reasonably well, that the time test multiple choice questions and the fast-paced curriculum from the Middle Ages and the 13th century to the Mongols to the Cold War to globalization was a fast pace, and it was a bit difficult for his processing skills and the amount of time that he had to take the test, even with time and a half, was a difficult thing for him. But IB was a better fit for him. And again, this is a special needs kid who really, really did well in this situation. He struggled in math and science, but in IB as a junior and as a senior, he blossomed. And he is now a freshman at Drew University in New Jersey. And from all I hear, he's doing extremely well in the humanities program. And that is in small part, due to some fine teachers who will remain nameless. Yeah, I know a few of them though. But more depth over breadth was very useful for him. Access to information on a deeper level, making broader connections, developing his thinking skills, really made him college ready. Also, he got involved in his IA, looking at the Srebrenica massacre in the Balkans, and I really enjoyed our time together doing that in those dark days of COVID, to have a little father-son time. But he really enjoyed the depth of that project, as well as in classes doing things like Socratic seminars, and also having to work on his IA, not just with one draft, not just with 2 drafts, but 3 drafts over a prolonged period of time, so he could perfect that IA. And it was such a wonderful experience for him, and it has really opened him up. And by the way, I think my son was one of those kids in TOK last year who was not a diploma candidate. My wife and I pushed him to do it. He did not want to do it. And it turned out to be his most favorite class. And I agree with you, Sarah. It would be great if we could get more kids to do TOK and opening it up to particularly those kids who are interested in big ideas. And recognize he really began to open up his mind and ask questions in ways that he hadn't before. And he really blossomed in his past 2 years when, frankly, he was a fairly mediocre student before that. Now, I do have some positive things to say about AP, but this was just a personal thing today. Part 2, January.
You know, the answer is, Mr. Cross, bring back AP Euro.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross.
Other public comment?
Paul Pascolgen from Glen Head. Dave, you got your pound of flesh out of Jerry, so I'm not going to rehash the privacy thing. I'm just going to mention one thing. Dr. Dolan, as you know, we met in July, and we sat down and we talked about a whole bunch of things, and we said that there were 4 things that we wanted to try to see if we can improve, right? One was that the district followed New York state and federal laws, and that the Board of Education, the administration, was truthful to the community, and that there was some influence and favoritism to the teachers union, and we wanted to try to eliminate that and increase the focus on costs, and have some real definitive discussion about the costs in the school. You said that it was a low bar, and we agreed. Great conversation. So all I want to say is that we're here at the end of 2021. We're moving into 2022. And after all that's happened now, it'd be great if we could move forward in a positive way and try to make the district better. But there has to be a give and take, I think. It can't be, I think there has to be a focus on some of the cost. There's a large portion of the community that wants that. And I think the district would do themselves a favor by addressing that. Thank you.
Sure.
Believe it or not, Paul, the email you sent me after our lunch that day, or light lunch anyway, has those 4 items on it. It's still posted in my office, right behind me. I look at it frequently. And number 1 is tell the truth. And I certainly have done that. And I do remember the other 3. So yeah, it's budget season, and we are just getting underway now, and we are trying to do some things differently. 2 that I'll mention right away. Shelley, I'm not sure if the newsletter has gone out yet. On its way, and we are trying to form what we're calling a community budget forum, inviting people to come and learn more about how a school budget gets built. It's going to star somebody who knows a lot about building school budgets in Olivia, and more of a novice. Okay, I don't come from a business background. I come up from a curriculum background, and I think I can sometimes know what question might be anticipated. So I'm looking forward to the show that Olivia and I are going to put on called Budget Boot Camp on Tuesday, January 4th. All right. That's how you lose the title esteemed, when you lose track of dates like that.
More esteemed that you can't wait to get to it. You got the date earlier, so that's good.
Because we are taking the approach to this budget as seriously as a 17-vote surplus would indicate we should. I wasn't here and I heard the message. I know this board heard the message. We have to work very hard on this budget. It has to be responsive. We need to be able to explain that budget, and we're going to. The day I asked to meet with you, Jerry, Paul, I'm sorry, it was all about reaching across and holding that hand out and saying, let's do this together. And I had a couple of seasonal comments in my opening comments, and I'll make another one now, and that is all about the new year and resolutions and the proverbial turning over a new leaf. The piece I'm going to ask you to believe me on is we don't lie, and we're as transparent as any place I've ever worked, maybe a little more transparent. So if that was an invitation to serve this community well, and by community, I don't mean just the school, because I recognize there are taxpayers here who don't have kids in school, who want to know that the lot of money that they're spending is being spent appropriately and with a careful eye on it. If that's a partnership that we could all form in the name of benefiting the schools and the kids, count me in. Okay? I reached across once before, and I'm doing it again publicly, and I hope that we can move forward.
Thanks, Tom. The only thing I'll add, Paul, is I know obviously we've gone back and forth a few times, but I like when you're here at the meetings. I like when you see it, and we're going to have the budget process is going to be done from this room. We used to have a dais, now we just have these little desks. But we're here, and the more you see the process, hopefully you can see what we do. share your comments on the budget and your thoughts and specifics. I think that's one of the things that, when I first came to this board, you have this idea that there's these easy cuts, there's things you can do, but seeing the process play out and seeing the details as it's constructed, as the board goes through it and reviews it, I look forward to you participating in that process. So, welcome. Other folks, public comment.
Thank you, Roger Friedman, Seacliff. I guess I agree that we need to be extremely conservative when we budget, and I actually applaud the school district for being conservative. I guess I have a different take on the 17 votes, and to me, it was closer, I think, than any other district on Long Island by a lot, except for maybe Riverhead, which voted down. No, even River. Lowest yes vote on Long Island. And I think what we have here that's unique was a sort of a concerted effort by a group to sow discord and disinformation and distrust. And I don't know the motive or all the motives. And I think we've all lost a lot in this last 2 years. We've all lost a tremendous amount of, our kids have lost, people have lost jobs, people have lost money, we've lost time with family, but I think more than anything, we've lost trust and compassion for each other. And there's plenty of anger and plenty of discord and plenty of anxiety. And if we need anything now more than ever, we need compassion, understanding, and empathy for each other. And I implore us, we are a small community. I implore everybody here to think about that in all the communications they do all over the channels that we do them. And in my view, the district clerk, in regards to the Newsday article and the ruling, the district clerk is a person who is deserving of our empathy and our trust and our compassion. And she is a woman who's lived in this village her whole life, in Seacliff her whole life, and her father was raised in this village. So, and the president of the teachers union is a teacher in our district who has been teaching in this district for many, many years and is much loved by many people and many students and has mentored and put a lot of people through this, a lot of kids, seen them through. And he deserves our empathy and our trust and our compassion. I don't think that we should be looking for devils where there are none. So, and in my view, the district clerk followed the opinion of the district's attorneys in granting the original FOIL request. I think it's safe to say that they interpreted the code differently than the CIO of New York State, which happens all the time, as Dave said, in our legal system. There are many different laws governing this, and all are subject to interpretation, which is why both of these interpretations are called opinions. Having said that, as Dave pointed out, it was rectified in 2020. It's worth noting that the opinion states that there was new guidance issued in August of 2020, and that the Pascalgian request for the very same information as the teachers union was denied because of that guidance, which is exactly what the district's lawyers said in their letter to the community. I do find it ironic that now the district is being dinged by this group and people who are up here tonight for disclosing the very same information that they asked them to disclose to them. And then they sent that sort of gotcha in an unsolicited mass email to what appears to be the entire population of the school district, and people really have no idea how they got on that list. So to me, that's a little bit ironic. I personally don't fault the district for following the advice of counsel, and I appreciate them saying that now that it's been brought to their attention that was wrong advice, that they've changed the policy. But I think any reasonable person would agree that the district clerk is not an attorney and should not be tasked with making those decisions or those calls. In the meantime, I'm and trying to say that this in the most compassionate way possible. I wonder at how there seems to be a singular focus by some people in this community to take down one of the best school districts in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Sure, come on up.
I'm Mike Conklin. I'm from Greenvale. I'm the president of the Athletics Booster Club. I originally came here to talk about the sign, but I see it in the in here, and I appreciate that. I just want to say that your job is real tough. My title in the Athletics Booster Club is spelled right out there. It's all about athletics and enhancing it. I don't call myself a friend of the district. Listen, some of that work needs to be done. It should be the tax revolt group or something like that. I can understand that. And everybody comes from a different direction. But I cannot sit by and listen when last year the Booster Club, all it wanted was to have the fund, the zero tax increase fund, established. And the same individuals calling them friends of the district said they were friends of athletics, and a no vote doesn't mean that it's not a good thing. It's a good thing to vote no. Well, the first things that get cut in budgets when they go down are sports and busing. This is not genius stuff. It happens all over Long Island whenever it happens. So I had to state that, and I'll wait for January and the other thing, but friend is a very strange term to be used.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Other folks? Okay. So we appreciate that. We're going to close public comment. I thank everyone for participating and for watching and for being here. We have some new faces here, which I love. I love seeing the old faces as well, or the veteran faces, not old or young. We appreciate that. Okay, so we will now move on to action item 11, which is personnel. Is there a motion on 11A through M as in Mary?
Motion.
Okay, and a second? Oh, we had a second as well. Any questions or comments?
I'd just like to say one thing. We have a retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Pam Shea, right? Where is that? That's B. I just want to say she's an amazing teacher that I had and my daughter has this year, and she is a gift to this district and those kids, and I'm very sad to see her go.
Thank you.
Andrea, I heard so much about Pam that when I heard she was retiring, I went over to the middle school. Had not met her yet, and went over to introduce myself to tell her how sad I was that I wasn't the person who could claim I hired her, but I was so honored to be the person who would be recommending her resignation for the purpose of retirement. So I've heard unbelievable things about Pam, and we all wish her well.
Thank you.
My daughter loves her too.
Andrea, it's all the trustees bring so much to the table. I really appreciate all my trustees that I work with. Also Rich, who's here, not here as well. But there's something about having an alum on the board to have that continuity that is pretty special. I wanted to recognize also, because it is such a cyclical business education, that although we can recognize the retirement of someone who's so valuable to us, I think it's also important to recognize the tenure that we'll be voting on for Dr. Titone, who did an amazing job today. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. I assume there'll be a part of a formal recognition at the end of the year, but so with that, I will call the vote. I guess now that I'm saying it technically, I should probably write the congratulations until after the vote, but we will call the vote. All in favor on action item 11, A through M, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Congratulations again. We'll now move on to action 12, which is the approval of a resolution pursuant to section 75. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. And a second? Okay. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Action 11, approval of budget transfers. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Action 14, approval of some community ed instructors. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments? These are musicians. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Action 15, which is the acceptance of a grant. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And I heard a second as well. Good, Betty? Thank you. Sorry, questions or comments on the grant acceptance?
Great news.
Great news. Yeah. Flexible seating for the ENL classroom, which is we all know, talk about experiential learning, talk about hands-on learning, talk about the classroom experience. This keys into all of that. All in favor? Aye. Action 16, which is the approval of the claims audit report that we got early. These are the claims audit report for September and October. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And I heard a second as well. Any questions or comments on the September and October 2021 claims audit reports?
I'll just say, I mean, we talked about it somewhat extensively in the audit committee earlier, but they're terrific.
Yeah.
That's the comment.
They were
terrific.
which is what they pretty much always are.
Yeah.
I mean, there we go. We're very lucky.
But October with no exceptions at all was really something.
Yeah. I think let's make sure we name Olivia Boazzi as the reason that they are terrific, and your office as well. I get it.
Give her the title esteemed.
Esteemed, yes, esteemed.
I will loan her the title. No, she's earned that.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Action 17, which is approval of 3 different contracts. Is there a motion on A, B, and C?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Just a quick question, not really related to the contract, but did we get a date for DHC to go and meet with LAC?
I can't hear
Yes.
you, Marianne.
Yes.
A date for
Yes, I
DHC.
believe so. Next Wednesday night,
Oh,
we've established a separate meeting for LAC, and it was at a time when DHC and an attorney from Ingram and Smith were available. I believe the board is invited to that as well. I'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure I extended an invitation to the board.
Oh, Merry Christmas. I thought that was going to be changed.
I-
I thought you had that date, and then you said you spoke too quickly.
Yeah, that
and
was
then
that was
I
actually
didn't- I
that
could
was
have
actually
missed
the
the
15th.
follow-up email.
Yeah, I remember well the rescind this invitation
Yes,
email that I
yes,
sent.
you
But
uninvited us.
I will follow up again tomorrow, but the 22nd is still on. LAC is scheduled to meet. They postponed last night. They are going to meet next week. DHC plans to be there remotely.
Remotely, thank you.
And I believe the attorney from Ingram and Smith will be there remotely. Also, however, we'll be live with the board on more specific topics on Saturday.
Yes, we have a board retreat for those watching.
Yes.
Yay.
I will follow up on that tomorrow,
Yes.
Marianne.
Okay, thank you.
It's going to be at the Glenwood Landing Library Resort. So no.
Bring your bathing
Santa
suit.
gifts ready. Can we just change the name every time we say retreat? You have to say like.
I did have a
so that we
couple,
go to the Glenwood Landing.
Sorry, I did have a couple questions about some of these contracts if no one else does.
I have one question.
Oh, yeah, please,
Sorry.
Maria.
I just wondered if there's a 2-minute elevator speech on what methodology or Think Math program is.
Sure, yeah. So Carol Smythe has been working with Sarah Schaefer, who is actually part of a think tank on new math with Bonhar, who we did work with several years ago when we first started the work. And we started rolling out a more refined program and training that really fits our values. It's hands-on, it's experiential. When you look at the K1 math program through Think Math, it looks like a Montessori approach. And I think it really gets more at deep understanding. And now Carol, with the teachers and her math team, is moving that program up into the upper grades. So this is training now for newer teachers and the upper grades. And what I love about the work with Sarah is it is cost efficient. It's versus other consultants, and she's very considerate. And she gives us more than what we do pay for.
So
This is
it's
not a-
totally building on on the way we teach math already. It's not a complete. It's not
That-
different from what we learned 5 years ago
That's-
when we went to those seminars.
That's
well.
correct,
Okay.
yeah.
It's a furthering of that. Okay.
Yeah.
And I
Thank
was
you.
just going to say, this isn't the first year we've had it. I think this is what, our third year?
That's right. Yeah, Carol started in K1 and then has been moving that program up through cohorts.
Thank you.
Okay. My question was about the Mamasi contract. I am prepared to vote yes myself on the Mamasi contract for the potential locations of the signs. Mike Conklin asked about the sign. So, Mike, if you're watching this on video, or anyone else who's watching it live or later on video, we are doing a traffic study to determine the best location for safety for the sign with various places. And there are 6 places that are noted. I don't know all 6, but there's one Kassam and Glen Cove Ave. There's one along Glen Cove Ave, kind of in that no man's land in front of the middle school between the entryway and that corner. There are 3 on the...
There's one by the Victorian House.
One by the Victorian
one
House.
by the teacher's parking lot.
Well, that's the one that's not listed.
No, that's not listed.
So I wanted to, I'm ready to vote yes on this today,
That's not listed?
but I would like to ask for, in our next meeting, if we could get a change order for that to approve that
I-
7th spot. Because right, Mary,
Yeah.
that's potentially the best spot, right?
I spoke with
Oh.
Tina this afternoon.
Yes.
And right away she said, okay, then we can do a change order. But she took the 6th location, divided it by the 18, and came up with $3,000. And then she said it will likely be lower than that.
Well,
so we are arranging the change order already.
Okay, good. Because I think that might be a good spot, right, Mary? It was
It's one of the places we discussed in the beginning.
Exactly.
We discussed in the very beginning when we were first talking about this, the center island, which the planters are there now, so that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, it's also
And
included.
It's also included we had also talked about in front of the music entrance, but that would not be visible to the public, but that was one of the music wing. We wired for the Victorian House, right? And
the one is across like
Doug Sam.
well, and one is across from like I guess the Polish deli or whatever.
Correct.
I think that's what it's called. So that's a 6. But then so that was my comment. It's in. Great, terrific. Any other questions or comments on A, B, or C for 17? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Action 18, which is a stipulation of settlement. Is there a motion
Motion.
and a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Action 19, which is the approval of special education consultant. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. And finally, action 20, a series of IEPs. Is there a motion? And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Just want to thank the IEP review committee. I did go through all of these. There's some of them are one line, some of them are a lot more than one line. So it was a lot of reading and a lot of prep. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate the special ed team going through all these and giving our kids what they need. Is there any other discussion? Yes, Tom?
Just one piece of old business, and
Oh,
also.
I'm sorry, we have to vote on that first. No problem. No problem.
Back off the esteemed list.
Yeah, we'll call the vote.
He
All
was
in
hoping
favor?
for the end of Thursday night football.
We're
Thank
voting.
you.
People, we're
Sorry,
voting.
we're voting. Lisa, you good? Thank you. All right. Old
Right,
business from our esteemed. I want to go back and refer to Olivia as exemplary. Can we use that one? And then you can be esteemed?
Yes, and I'm talking about Olivia, so I will use exemplary. I do have some data for the board from a previous meeting, and it's, again, it just points to the quality of the work that Olivia does, and it really is remarkable. A question had been raised, and I'm sorry that the person who raised it is not here, about reimbursement for travel trips, whether we were reimbursed for chaperones. And while we assured everybody that we were, when we looked into it further, I was amazed at the diligence with which this process takes place. We looked at 3 separate trips, Greece, France, and Italy, over the last several years. Not only did we fully collect the chaperone fees, and again, I'm not a numbers guy, so I'm impressed by this. Maybe it should be routine. We also were reimbursed for FICA. We were also reimbursed for Social Security. We were also reimbursed for TRS. I mean, the entire cost, anything that it would have cost for that employee to go, we were reimbursed for. There was one expense that we were so appropriately not reimbursed for. On one of those trips, a special ed student required an aid. The aid was paid by the district, and that's an educational cost. That's us. That's on us. And there was no reimbursement for that, and nor should there have been. So when I looked at the sheets today with Olivia, just the degree of punctiliousness to make sure that district funds are always watched and cared for, and ultimately not only taking good care of our kids, but taking good care of our community. So yes, I will go with exemplary for Ms. Boazzi. And thank you very much, Olivia, for that diligence.
Thank you. Any other old business?
I
Please.
think, sorry, am I on?
You're on.
Yeah.
You're good.
So I wanted to give a little bit of an update on LAC. I'll be brief because there's other places to look for the information. But Sarah raised this at our last meeting when she told us about RXR making its moving forward on its development plans for the Engineers Club. And so there was a meeting a week ago by the Glen Head and Glenwood Landing civics organizations. George Pumbar had invited RXR to come to speak, to address the civics specifically about the plans for the development, which they had done back in November. RXR had presented an hour-long presentation to the village of Roslyn Harbor. And that is available on the website for the village of Roslyn Harbor. And I urge everyone to take a look, although it is an hour long, and the public, I hope, who might still be watching, should really, our district should really take a look at it. It is a big deal, and it has a tremendous amount of detail. It's a good overview of what they're planning to do. So they gave a digest verversion of it to the civics groups, and Dave asked me to go in his place as he's on one of the civics groups, and but couldn't make it. So George very generously allowed me to go in Dave's place and bring some of our concerns to RXR to this meeting. And honestly, our concerns were actually, echoed by a lot of other people, including Lisa Vizza, a former member of this group, who also really helpfully echoed the concerns, specifically what this new 92-unit, 3 to 4 bedroom condominium development will. How it will affect our district in terms of student enrollment and in terms of taxes specifically. I can't say that I felt our questions were adequately addressed. Did not feel anything more than pretty offhanded answers. They don't anticipate a big influx of students. They don't anticipate. They said that they won't make any promises, but they're not planning to apply for any IDAs at this point, which is a little bit hard to believe. And incidentally, they also mentioned that they don't expect that it'll be up to Nassau County to define any traffic changes that have to be made to accommodate any more cars, but they really don't see it as being a big impact, because they anticipate, and I thought that their justification really was actually quite wrong, but they anticipate this will be largely empty nesters, and they based this on
3 and 4 bedroom
They always say-
condos with empty nesters. That is fascinating.
Not only that, but they based it on their experience at their other developments, including Garvey's Point and the Ritz Carlton, where they mentioned, this is the last point I just want to point this out. I have to find it on my notes. Forgive me. Oh goodness, here it is. So they used the Beacon at Garvey's Point, which is the building with 165 condos, and the Ritz Carlton at North Hills as a comparison. And in both cases, they showed, so at the Beacon, the age group between ages 41 and 65 makes up 64% of their buyers. And at the Ritz Carlton, that same age group makes up 40% of their buyers. And then age group 65 plus at the Beacon is 27% of their buyers, and the same age group at the Ritz Carlton is 44% of their buyers. Now they use that as evidence that the buyers at the Engineers Club will largely be empty nesters.
Are these attached
Now
dwellings?
this is age group 41 to 65. I beg to differ
knowing that
that
age
this
has
is
children,
largely
right?
an empty nesters.
Are they attached dwellings? Or
So this largely, yes. So there are two architectural types of structures that they're going to use. Sorry, I think I just got away from this.
Right, there's the
There'll be
manor house.
townhomes, attached townhomes in clusters of 4 or 5. That will be roughly, it's very roughly half and half, but something, I think there'll be like maybe 55 of the condos. And then the others will be, about 40 of them will be actually in a 5-story manor house, sort of more in a, in more like a rental unit, but
I
they're,
have
they're
such
condos.
a crazy idea. What if we called Glen Cove and asked them how many kids were added to their district from those new buildings at Garvey's Point?
I think you're talking about. I would like to know what they actually did for studies. At 41, I had a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Well, that's the thing.
I'm just saying. Now I know I wasn't the average
No, but
parent,
that's what
but
she
I
said,
had a
too.
7-year-old
that's
and
exactly, and
a
I
4-year-old, and I would beg to differ that you're going to attract the same people in Glen Cove in that school district that you're going to attract in North Shore School District.
Agreed.
You're not comparing apples to apples, so I don't.
And
Like,
there are-
I'm not sure those comparisons are valid. And North Hills, of course, has a very good school district. But did you see where the Ritz Carlton is?
And they're
overlooking the LA
units,
in a
right,
high rise.
The units are smaller and
This is overlooking. This is going to be overlooking a modified 18-hole Jack Nicklaus Company design golf course
with 3 and 4 bedrooms.
in a top school district. This is clearly going to be.
It's a different animal.
I got to be
Yeah.
honest. I even went to the website. I was interested.
But this, they could have given you real numbers.
Yeah.
Those
How many cars your family has?
Those developments exist and have already sent children to school districts. They didn't give anybody those numbers. They didn't say, this is how many kids live there now. They said, oh, look, 40-year-olds.
I was superintendent in Great Neck when the Ritz-Carlton was developed and opened, and we heard the exact same speech. I don't know what the ending numbers were, what the numbers ended up being, but they assured us there would be no children.
Right,
No, maybe a kid, maybe, but
Every
that's as much as they market differently to whoever they're speaking to, their market to school districts and probably the county too is to say, oh, this will have no impact.
And they
Of
will say the
course they're
same
gonna say
thing
that.
when they
Right.
go to the IDA.
Right.
The analogy I used with Maria before the meeting was from the Music Man. He goes town to town and selling his spiel. That's what's happening here. Oh no, no! I mean, I'm not going to turn it to song, but
And
no
there
kids,
are-
no
there
impact,
are-
no cars.
But there is better data. Other people have actually done these studies,
And
right?
these plans-
Syosset had Ross Haberman do it based on much more similar, and like their studies very robust. That those numbers exist. Those numbers say it'll be 85 kids.
So I did want to, I want to urge everybody, first of all, say that, I think this is something, we should pay attention to. I
Yeah.
think LAC can perhaps be a leading light in monitoring this. They are planning. They're starting to work on their draft, their environmental impact statement, which they expect to have completed in early spring, so that
With no
sometime
cars.
during the spring there will then be a public comment period, which will be another important opportunity.
Yeah, I'd say,
Um,
I don't want to interrupt, but LAC, and also, even though it's very local with the Roslyn Village, I think DHC should
Yeah.
stay in touch, especially, not that it directly affects the school district, but to be careful, we can't spend school resources monitoring this. But traffic is a big part of this as well.
They have obviously not been at that intersection when I'm going to work. I'm
I
just
know.
saying.
No, it's just.
They don't, well, no. Maria, thank you so much for going.
Thank you very much.
It's
Yeah,
great.
that was
It was very
interesting.
interesting.
Very
It's my
interesting.
pleasure. Thanks.
It's nonsense.
Yeah, other old business,
Sure.
please.
I want to say I read Olivia's, I'll say exemplary update of 72 pages with great interest. And the electric bus process that you discussed is very interesting to me. But it is still really striking to me that there's not a discussion of charging the buses with solar panels, particularly given, that location, that we have a lot, that it gets direct sunlight, that et cetera, everything that's going on. There's a way to charge the buses with solar, at least to some extent. And I think the other reason that makes sense is just there are ongoing concerns throughout our country about, electrical grid stability and robustness. Just another reason besides just money to look at the solar aspect.
Sarah,
ma'am.
I know that when we were doing the energy savings performance contract, we did look at solar panels at the bus depot.
Correct.
And
But they told
part
us
of
the bus wasn't eligible for the EPC.
it wasn't just that. It was I think it was the maintenance of the solar panels, right? There was some reason why they didn't recommend the solar panels
I thought
at
that
the
they
bus
just said it
depot, and
wasn't
I can't.
eligible. That
No,
the
I don't
bu-
think it was just
transportation wasn't
eligibility. It was something else.
I'll double check that, but I think we had exceeded the payback when we got to the bus depot. I don't know whether you're talking about that or you are talking about the proposal that was DHC wanted to bring to us with another company.
No. I'm talking about the company that we used,
Ecosystems,
and they specifically looked. And I can't remember, and if I can find it in when I'm cleaning up someday, I'll look for it. There was something in that proposal. They looked at solar panels down at the bus depot, and they ruled it out. I don't think it was just that we exceeded. There was some other reason.
I'll check tomorrow.
But
And there, I don't think it's the model
Mamasi
of the
may
roof.
know
I
off
think
the
it's
top of their
model
head,
that.
or we could ask.
My other old business, speaking of chaperones and trips, is that all the destinations we've talked about for trips are now level 4, do not travel for the CDC. So I was just wondering where we were with that.
The first one that's scheduled to go is Florida, the domestic one for the cheerleaders. And I spoke to 2 other superintendents who also have students going on that one. It is a competition that was scheduled. As of now, it is still on. With all due respect to cheerleaders, and I hope I'm not insulting anybody, they are a really, really rabid bunch. They see this as an incredibly important event to go to. All but one of, no, I'm going to take that back. On that trip, I'm not sure of the vaccination rate. I know in Costa Rica, all but one of the kids is vaccinated, and he's already had COVID. He has antibodies.
Right. No, I know there are things. I'm just saying the CDC doesn't say if you're vaccinated, travel. Those
No.
countries have all
Oh, no.
risen to the level of do not go.
Having-
period. The end.
Yep, having looked at those sites recently in order to make some personal decisions, a level 4 means do not travel. As of now, the students and families are still interested in pursuing their travel. And certainly the State Department's not going to say no.
I was just in Florida. There's absolutely no COVID. You would
That's
never
what I
know
heard.
COVID exists.
It must have been so nice.
Florida. I was safer in Mexico. That's just saying.
Let me follow up with Anna tomorrow and see where the chaperones are. I'm kind of anxious to hear what the chaperones have to say about their own safety as well as the kids. So let me follow up and I will get back to the board.
I
But
would
yes.
appreciate that. Thank you.
And I do know
70%
travel
of
for
people
red.
with Omicron are vaccinated.
I mean, and boosted at this point, right? Like 16 plus can get boosted after 6 months, and that's what the CDC says. Go get that.
Yeah, and I have. Are you done?
I am.
Do you have,
Thank
do you
you.
have,
No,
okay,
I'm done.
I don't want to interrupt you. It's kind of old new business. In your report, you talked about the FEMA applications. So when that money comes in, it just occurred to me, when that money comes in and we get reimbursed, how do we account for that? Is that going to be deemed revenue to us? And how will that impact the budget calculations? And, what happens if we form our budget and all of a sudden we get this revenue in?
First of all, I would.
So I'm sorry. Let me
I-
just get.
I
Yeah,
want the check in my hands first.
I know.
Yes,
I like
I
that Marion said when we get. It's like let's.
I'm
oh.
being positive tonight. Don't
No,
don't jinx
I'm-
it.
Because
Actualize receipt of funds. Okay.
because FEMA is notorious. They'll come in and say that is not covered. This is not covered.
Yes, that's true.
So we threw the entire kitchen sink at them, and we'll continue fighting for it to see whatever they give me, I'll take. But then I'll hold the check and come to the board meeting, and then we'll decide what to do.
Yeah, I'm just
It could be a
concerned
long
about the
process
timing.
too, though.
It could be next year, but if it comes, what I'm worried
Regardless, to
about,
your
if it
point,
comes like we do our budget, right? And all of a sudden we get some money. I don't think obviously we're going to get everything we asked for, whoever does, but now we've got our budget formed and we get this check in the fiscal year. How do you account for it? It's revenue, right? And that's going to be a little bit of it could be a tricky situation. Now, it may come next year, but it doesn't mean it's the same problem next year as this year, right? How do you account for it?
I think I would rather get the check and then think
Don't
about
worry about accounting for it, true.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but it is worth noting. I'm glad you brought it up because there is potentially, it's notable. We'll see how much we get, but I know that number's been such a moving target. We thought it would get a very little, and they said don't do this, and now they have this You wrote about the organization that's helping all school districts work on it. Yeah, it's very interesting. A clearinghouse, and why not? That's literally the help that government should be giving to school districts. Thank you for helping us do that, and to interface, and to, with any luck,
It's a lot of extra
grease
work.
the skids of funds. Yeah.
It's a lot of extra work.
Okay. Other, we're transitioning from old to new, but any oldish, newish business? Any straight new business? Straight new, all new. Okay. Then I think at this point we'll make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you, everyone.